In school, the icy beauty queen is determined to win him over. Outside, he's the most sought after by the wealthiest female CEO in the city. Even the top assassin is willing to commit suicide for him. Yet he's just a peculiar student who sleeps in class and cheats during exams by copying his friends' papers, because all this study time is dedicated to martial arts training, preparing for perfect assassination missions. As a top assassin, TRANNAC holds power above the law, every action causing the 6 superpowers to rack their brains in unrest. However, today, TRANNAC decides to surrender, just to announce that his illness is worsening. If the president doesn't want me to activate the 6 nuclear warheads lying dormant underground, I hope you won't investigate all my people in the next 3 months. Of course, they will also disappear entirely, as if they never existed. On the other side, the female assassin, codenamed DOM, has just completed a mission when she receives a call, informing her to suspend all tasks indefinitely, forever. Upon hearing the end of the sentence, DOM begins to cry out in disbelief that he is dead, immediately grabbing his gun and firing a series of shots indiscriminately, then coldly withdrawing his knife and stabbing directly into his chest, inside the enemy's aircraft. The deep-sea female assassin also received the notification, immediately steering the aircraft straight into the rock face, causing an explosive impact. The computer immediately displays the message DOM, and the deep-sea bird are now offline in front of the female commander. She burst into tears, deciding to carry out her final mission, suicide. They all have no reason to exist anymore when they know TRANNAC is dead. But as soon as he opens his eyes, TRANNAC finds himself in a classroom, having been reincarnated into a teenager attending high school. Once again, a peculiar student who is constantly being kicked out of class by the teacher. He doesn't know if this is a reward or if the heavens are punishing him for the sins he committed in his previous life. According to TRANNAC's investigation, this body is only 18 years old, taken care of by his grandmother since childhood. He's a loner at school with no friends, the typical simple character setup that's less bothersome. After some research, TRANNAC realizes his first teammate, named DOM, is about to face a major crisis, leading to the decision to become a female assassin for revenge on behalf of the family. With his current student identity, he surely can't go to North Korea to rescue her. At that moment, while TRANNAC was constantly thinking of ways to cross the border, suddenly there was a high-pitched scream from behind. It was a girl falling from above. Could she be trying to commit suicide? His reflexes were swift. He immediately reached out and saved the girl, but both ended up lying on the ground. The incident reached the principal's office, where TRANNAC learned that the girl was the homeroom teacher's daughter and also a school beauty. Immediately, a plan formed in his mind. The next day, instead of spreading rumors about KHA jumping off a building, everyone would be interested in TRANNAC writing a love letter. The girl rushed to his location after hearing those words, looking extremely embarrassed and rejecting the love letter with the excuse that they were both too young to focus on studies first. But after the ceremony, they could stand side by side with the great powers of the 5 continents. Immediately after, he was asked about KHA's ranking in the previous exam, as there were only 300 students in that class. To everyone's surprise, even the homeroom teacher's child ranked 196. Truly, one should focus on studying. Consoling pat on the shoulder. Keep going, you can do it, I believe in you. As if she herself wasn't the one rejecting him. The school immediately announced they would select students to send to North Korea to participate in competitions as a golden opportunity to rescue DOM without any hassle or effort. TRANNAC raised his hand eagerly, but was surprised it was for math, a subject he detested, causing everyone in the class to laugh at him. Truly, the illusion of power. At this moment, a group of students, very sinister, were pushing each other about persuading him, or else they'd be beaten. The leader used all his courage to persuade TRANNAC to go play games with them, even though they weren't friends before. He agreed because he had slept through the entire class and needed to loosen up. However, no matter what, he still couldn't see the sun, feeling so bored and wanting to leave. But he was immediately stopped by a burly guy who grabbed his shoulder to prevent him from escaping. The reason for all this was because of the body's climbing incident, the love letter to the school beauty, and KHA. That's why he encountered this gangster. The source of the problem originated from climbing and writing a love letter to the school beauty, leading to the involvement of this gangster. He couldn't imagine the absurdity of the situation. The school beauty and the gangster, what a strange coincidence. Without saying anything, he knew this guy had already recognized him. If they liked each other, he'd have to endure it. Choosing such an unexpected place was quite clever. TRANNAC revealed his true face, filled with bloodlust, as the guy prepared to punch. At this moment, while on his way to deliver lunch to his father, who was still working overtime, KKA spotted TRANNAC rifling through someone else's belongings. But in reality, he didn't know which bicycle was his, so he tried them all. Truly, patience was unmatched. This scene caught the attention of the school beauty, who quickly intervened to stir up more drama, being proactive in starting the conversation. However, when he called her back, she immediately turned her head away, appearing cold and aloof, indicating her immaturity. He forgave her for her low emotional intelligence, as she hadn't experienced much in life yet. He might handle this situation better later on. After all, he had saved KHA's life once, so there was no need to meet again or regard each other as enemies. In fact, today, TRANNAC had even intervened to help someone in distress, aiding a mother and child to escape from the gangster. That guy, who had previously harassed KHA incessantly at the school gate, could now confidently assert that he wouldn't appear for at least 100 days because he was currently hospitalized, completely bandaged. Seizing this opportunity, TRANNAC inquired about the international student competition at IMBAN. Seeing him continue to mess with other people's bikes, KHA quickly pointed out that his own dilapidated bike, near the rusty wooden corner with a broken bell, was actually his. This teasing remark prompted laughter from a bystander. Although they weren't in the same class, how did she know that rundown bike belonged to TRANNAC, causing the bystanders to drum their desks in surprise? As for the international student competition, he used the excuse of wanting to go snow watching and asked KHA, the homeroom teacher's daughter, who surely knew the procedure better. Apart from requesting to be notified, suddenly TRANNAC's stomach grumbled loudly, indicating his poverty and need to save money, as he had nothing to eat for dinner. Seeing this, KHA kindly offered to help him apply for financial assistance from the school and family sponsorship. But those things were unnecessary in TRANNAC's eyes. He was more focused on the hour to deliver someone else's lunch and begged for it. So, with one hand on the handlebars and the other holding a piece of chicken thigh, he cheerfully headed back, continuing his training regimen, oblivious to the glass of water on the table beginning to tremble. This school was no better. Just a public school with a low-performing student body, soon to be taken over by an educational corporation. So it could be said that Mr. Liu was just a salaried worker. TRANNAC quickly found him and talked about wanting to participate in the competition, but then abruptly interrupted him and placed an envelope on the table containing a bribe. As soon as Mr. Liu saw it, his attitude changed instantly, trying to justify himself, appearing flustered and claiming to have forgotten. There were also 3 positions available for volunteers to participate, with food and accommodation provided, which made TRANNAC ecstatic. As long as he could go, it was fine. He had prepared all the necessary documents, making Mr. Liu nervous and cautious, as dealing with TRANNAC wasn't simple. What student would dare to bribe a teacher so openly? On the other hand, KHA continued to change her grade. While the passing score was 60, she only had 45, yet refused to study and still mingled with the crowd. She looked at the list of participants in the competition, and seeing TRANNAC's name at the top, made her rush to her father, demanding a sports car. Truly, the offspring of influential people were different. Just by opening their mouths, they could get whatever they wanted. Immediately, she stood at the platform, waiting to ambush TRANNAC, showing her care for him, making him wonder how she managed to participate when the list was already finalized. As the train began to depart, even if there were deviations in the story, TRANNAC remained unchanged amidst life's myriad changes, extremely shrewd. He came here to travel, not to spend money to do hard labor. He immediately mentioned that he had paid the participation fee for this trip, implying that if there were any dissatisfaction, they could kick him off the train, hinting at the possibility of Mr. Liu's bride being exposed at any time. He took out a cigarette to casually offer it to Mr. Liu, suggesting that the bribery could be exposed at any time. Little did he know, he had been played and the cigarette was fake. As for Tae part, only now did she come to her senses, not understanding who she had relied on and got distracted by boys, forgetting her way back to join this trip. However, she was incredibly considerate of TRANNAC's kindness. When TRANNAC used a bump stop to help someone else regain their hearing, she immediately rebuked him. But that evening, she directly wanted to dominate for 4 consecutive days, causing Mr. Liu to want to burst a blood vessel in anger. Immediately, he took out a voice recorder and talked about the bribe amount he had mentioned to intimidate. It made Mr. Liu's face change. He quickly grabbed TRANNAC's collar. If this recording was leaked outside, then surely this job would be hard to maintain. He roared with fury. If he had done this much, then he couldn't hold back. A moment ago, he was speaking loudly, but the next moment, he was crushed underfoot and stomped by him, clearly unable to fight back. TRANNAC then assigned Mr. Liu a task to arrange for him to leave. I believe the teacher could conceal this matter, so I turned away and left. At the border now, he was tirelessly struggling in the freezing cold snow to cross the border. Even though it was -13 degrees Celsius, he still accurately predicted the time. When the headlights came to his location, he quickly darted aside, holding his breath to accurately time it. He ran swiftly to avoid being caught. The light had just landed safely, and suddenly he saw a foot in front of him, and the person looked up and met a guard who had not yet drawn his gun. Then, immediately, TRANNAC used one hand to strike the trachea of the opponent, quickly rushing to pick up the guy and drag him away. At the same time, the other guards above were still confident, not noticing any ghosts. But down here, TRANNAC was crawling extremely smoothly. He had prepared very thoroughly, including a pair of pliers to dismantle the wire. Even the food and energy supplies for himself were right in front of him, with a minefield. However, it was too easy. In a previous life, you have completed the mission of escape countless times. Immediately, you passed through easily. Just 30 meters more, you could escape from the minefield. But unfortunately, the snow was too slippery, so unintentionally, your knee touched a landmine, which could easily explode and cause damage within a radius of 10 meters. Just a slight movement of the knee, the mine's body inside, the mine's shell would simultaneously be compressed by the force of the spring backward, directly jumping up, but the flesh and bones were shattered, leaving no trace for future generations. He quickly took off his school uniform and cut out a piece, then inserted it into his knee pad and pressed it against the bomb. Next, he used 2 needles to break into 2 hooks, securing the piece of fabric in place. He kept reassuring himself that he needed to remain calm. He then pulled out a pen refill from his pen and wanted to use it to insert it into the safety lock. After a while of holding his breath, he finally managed to insert it, but it wasn't time to breathe a sigh of relief yet. After 2 layers of protection, he continued to reassure himself that God wouldn't play tricks on him. He quickly rolled aside and hugged his head. Only when he didn't see any movement could he finally breathe a sigh of relief. As he stood up, he swore that he would repay this debt, while using all his strength to jump into the shelter to avoid the bullets. Thinking it was safe, he saw 4 eyes staring at each other, along with 2 other soldiers infiltrating. Without saying much or hesitating, TRANNAC immediately rushed towards them, using the head leader's name, then took out a dagger from his jacket and stabbed it straight towards one of them. The other immediately aimed straight at the forehead of that person. Seeing this, the one who had just been hit stopped, saying, "If you're good, come here." TRANNAC obediently complied, holding a small iron rod, causing both of them to collide, making the guy bleed on the spot. He quickly robbed their clothes, which could easily blend in across the border. Once they entered the city, they took off their disguises and dyed their hair to match his new appearance. In a previous life, He had to accept an assassination mission of a mob boss, with a hefty reward of $6 million. It was during this time that TRANNAC first met Dom. She also pretended to be a divine lover to assassinate him. Although he tried his best to alert the soldiers outside, it was too late. They could only capture her. In the end, he followed her to escape. All 8 directions were surrounded like copper bullets. It seemed like everything was being played out in slow motion, easily dodging them. Then, he confidently said, "You handle all of them." At that moment, TRANNAC quickly brought Dom to a safe house. However, instead of feeling fearful, the girl fell into a major delusion. To her, being safe meant being able to do whatever she pleased, as if letting the wolf guard the sheep. Yet, when that gentle hand was about to touch him, she quickly changed course, shifting from seduction to attack. But to TRANNAC, this was just a mosquito's trick. He swiftly struck Dom's neck, rendering her unconscious. When she regained consciousness, she found herself bound like a coconut worm, dangling from the ceiling. Meanwhile, he was leisurely smoking a cigarette, thoroughly enjoying this moment. Silence reigned until the next morning. It was only then that TRANNAC finally decided to release the captive. This prompted Dom to question why she had been saved. "Because you're beautiful," he replied, pressing the gun to her throat without hesitation. He was deeply intrigued by her, a person who embodied both madness and brutality. He was both passionately driven and ruthlessly efficient. Realizing that TRANNAC was of a different league, a super VIP pro, Dom, who had been effortlessly rescued the night before, immediately bowed her head and begged him to help her seek revenge. Tears streamed down her face as she remembered her small family. Within just 2 days, TRANNAC had kept Dom by his side, training her to become a sharpshooter. With her newly acquired skills, she was able to effortlessly eliminate the person who had murdered her entire family. Instead of feeling joyous for having avenged her family, Dom burst into tears as she walked, holding the last photo of her family in her hand upon waking up. Seeing TRANNAC sitting beside her bed, also crying profusely, she fainted on the spot. When he was about to leave, she pulled him back, afraid that she wouldn't be able to control herself alone and might harm herself. She confessed about her harrowing experience when she was kidnapped, her father murdered to transfer property, her brother killed in front of her mother, leaving only the 2 of them. She recounted the atrocities she endured, including the rape by her captors and the murder of her mother. That night, she had sought help from her father's old friend, only to be betrayed and handed over to the criminals. Fortunately, Dom, quick-witted, used a chopstick to stab the eye of her captor, allowing her to escape. Before meeting TRANNAC, Dom had always lived in hell, with her life constantly shrouded in darkness. Meeting him was like encountering the light of her life. When she heard him boasting about himself, she was immediately taken aback. "If the world is dark, then shine your own light," he said. He even jokingly called her a butt shining brightly. This made Dom reminisce about her past, ending the train of thought when the taxi driver announced their arrival. As soon as she stepped out, she encountered TRANNAC, who recognized her from when she was 17 years old, exhibiting the fiery temperament of her late grandmother. When she accidentally bumped into a man, she wanted to charge at TRANNAC, but her grandmother's fiery temper seemed to have passed down to her. In the midst of the commotion, another person approached, and TRANNAC, delighted to see her after a long time, playfully covered her head with his coat, confidently declaring himself as a person fallen from the sky to help her chase away a nightmare. Initially taken aback, Dom quickly smiled and raised her leg, as if to kick at a street corner before fleeing. However, TRANNAC ran after her, telling the police that the man she was about to kick wanted to assault her. But when they turned back, they saw no one there. At that moment, the intelligence agency had discovered the sudden death of 2 soldiers during a secret military operation, along with a series of images showing the bomb that had been defused with extreme precision to prevent an explosion. They suspected that the enemy in the north was becoming more adept, leading to the insistence on protecting the safety of the south. Meanwhile, at the northern border, they believed that the enemy from the south had infiltrated evidenced by the cut zinc wires and scattered bullet casings. Angered by the situation, the head ordered the soldiers to shoot and kill anyone who crossed the border without strict surveillance. As both sides were investigating the incident, TRANNAC, while sneezing continuously and hastily stuffing a chocolate bar into his mouth to stave off hunger while hiding on a rooftop, caught a whiff of the strong scent of chicken feet. Peeking inside, he witnessed a seemingly happy family scene, with the mother scolding her child while DOM laughed carefreely. But this peaceful moment was abruptly interrupted by the sound of screeching brakes as a crowd of people rushed in, signaling the beginning of chaos. On this side, halfway through the night, KHA once again sought out Lu to find men, putting Lu in a difficult position. Liu pretended to be sleepy to slip inside, but KHA wouldn't let it go and kept questioning him, prompting Lu to quickly find his phone for help and play a fake ringtone, pretending to be a supervisor calling. Hearing his father's voice made KHA pale with fear. "It's midnight, and you're out looking for men like this." This realization made KHA quickly give up and flee, allowing Lu to narrowly escape a disaster, though he couldn't help but shed a tear. Indeed, making a living wasn't easy. Meanwhile, Dom's family was under attack by the assailants. Her older brother quickly stood up to protect the family but was kicked aside. The ringleader, the bald old man, was recognized by TRANNAC as the one who had attempted to assassinate Dom in the past. He was a business partner with Dom's father, involved in large-scale smuggling operations. However, they later collaborated with two other gang leaders to traffic in illegal goods, such as organs, which was highly profitable. They attempted to coerce Dom's father into joining their scheme, but when he refused, they killed him and dumped his body into the sea. Now, they were targeting Dom's entire family. Even though her older brother tried to fight back, the children couldn't defend themselves. The assailants easily overpowered them, leaving them helpless on the floor. Outside, TRANNAC kept watch, knowing that the time was nearing. At that moment, the man with black hair revealed his predatory nature, making TRANNAC seethe with anger. But before he could act, the man went outside to open the window, startling some birds, almost blowing their cover. However, the enemies didn't notice him. Instead, they spotted a few fire trucks across the street, making it difficult for them to act. So they quickly moved to another location, all according to TRANNAC's plan. He was the one who had triggered the fire alarm in the neighboring building, which was empty. However, due to a miscalculation, it seemed that Dom's father had become shark bait by now. The only ones they could save were Dom's parents and siblings, so they rushed into the train station, riding a high-speed car to chase after the assailants. At this point, the bald old man couldn't contain his anger, as he had always been dominated and insulted by Dom's father, who had even threatened to take Dom's mother as his own if it weren't for him. So the man with the gold head offered him a cigarette, his instinct to consume Dom's mother's flesh still evident. However, the bald old man's despicable nature became even clearer when he wanted to possess Dom, who was still innocent. They were taken to an abandoned warehouse. Dom's mother still believed that the bald old man had some respect for her husband, pleading with him continuously. But on Sunday, those tears only excited the old man more, as he used a leather whip to strike all three of them. She quickly shielded her two children with her body, leaving her older brother furious and eager to retaliate against the old man. However, he was outnumbered and helpless, with everyone ganging up on him, leading Dom in despair. She hoped it was all just a nightmare and prayed to wake up and return to normality. But when she remembered TRANNAC's confident face and his declaration to redeem her life, he suddenly sent his supercar crashing into the scene, startling everyone. However, only Dom recognized the car as theirs. Instead of getting out of the car with confidence, TRANNAC complained incessantly about the quality of their car, much to everyone's surprise. Despite the fact that the car cost several months' worth of salary to buy, he criticized it in every way. Dom, however, paid no attention, feeling itchy. She couldn't believe he had actually come. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a man fell from the sky, causing everyone to be on high alert. TRANNAC ordered his soldiers to charge, and one of them, holding a club filled with nails, lunged forward to attack. Despite TRANNAC's attempts to sneak up from behind, he was discovered, but he quickly dodged to the side and swiftly kicked the man in the neck, breaking his spine in half. The others quickly rushed forward to attack, but all they found were lifeless bodies strewn across the ground. The sight of TRANNAC single-handedly taking on all of them made them realize the gravity of their situation, leaving them pale-faced and trembling. Both of them relied on the man with the black hair, as he was once an elite warrior of the country's front line. TRANNAC sighed deeply and tossed his bag aside, issuing a warning. "You're the second person who dares to point a knife at me. But do you know what the consequences will be?" Despite his goodwill being rejected when the man didn't care about his own life and lunged at TRANNAC with a knife, it barely grazed him, failing to harm him at all. TRANNAC swiftly retaliated, but only ended up damaging his own property, leaving himself unharmed. The man with the black hair didn't stop there, launching a series of attacks, but he couldn't match TRANNAC's speed. After mastering what could be called frontline battle techniques, TRANNAC planned his counterattack. With a swift kick, he sent the man's last weapon, a dagger, flying. The man's last hope. His hand quickly reached for TRANNAC's neck, but he was met with a quick strike that sent blood splattering. With just a paper-cutting knife, TRANNAC efficiently dispatched him in a split second. Seeing his impending demise, the bald old man showed his cowardice by attempting to flee, but TRANNAC grabbed him by the collar. "Where do you think you're running? You can't escape from me," he said, tossing his bag towards him. With a quick flick, he struck the old man's head, revealing it was filled with bricks and stones. "Who are you trying to fool?" TRANNAC taunted. In the end, only the man with the gold head remained, who had been punching and kicking the dust since earlier. Surprisingly, Diom didn't attempt to escape, but sat there, watching. She became the old man's hostage, her tears falling ceaselessly, causing TRANNAC to frown in concern. "Don't worry. I haven't planned to use this move, as my body hasn't mastered it yet," he reassured her. But now was the time for him to take the risk. With a single palm strike, he made TRANNAC sweat profusely, not only displaying his VIP-level combat skills, but also revealing his extraordinary superpowers. The man with the black hair froze, as if glued to the spot, unable to move or do anything. He was as good as dead. The ghost could only watch as TRANNAC approached, gently taking the dagger and uttering a cheesy line. "Are you scared? Don't worry, I'll chase away your nightmares for you." Then, with a gentle push, he stabbed the man directly in the chest with his finger, causing him to fall backward. TRANNAC then caressed Dom's face, saying melodramatically, "Don't be afraid. I'll drive away the nightmares for you." After waking up, Dom found himself lying in the living room of his own house, still groggy. He had finished off the soup at someone else's house in one go, and hurriedly ran back to reclaim his coat, using the excuse of feeling a bit chilly after seeing the stray cat. That's why he had draped it over himself without bothering to get a blanket. Until now, when he woke up at night, he tried to demand it back, but unconsciously clung tightly to it and refused to let go. Even when TRANNAC asked him what he wanted to wash, one or two things, auntie. His clothes were worth money too, not to mention the uniform, which he had to spend money to buy. It's not like they were given away for free, so why fight for it? While Dom was unconscious, he discussed the recent events with the girl's mother. He mentioned that they shouldn't report the matter to the police, as it had already been resolved. Besides, he had already killed quite a few people, and didn't want to attract more trouble. He wanted to touch the girl from the other family, but hesitated because he was still afraid of Dom. Surprisingly, the girl not only wasn't afraid, but immediately asked about TRANNAC's true nature. This made Dom feel like bursting with laughter at her naive question. Who in their early teens would ask such a naive question? He patted her head, knowing that the girl's mother knew everything about Dom. Just thinking about it made him break out in a cold sweat, as the girl's mother had fainted from exhaustion. Only Dom Doem's elder brother was too alert like a weasel, so TRANNAC didn't want to deal with him. He tied Doem up again and kept admonishing the girl to preserve her innocence. No drugs, no tattoos, no swearing, no alcohol. Then he was about to leave, but Doem stopped him, believing that good people in this world were all angels. This was immediately denied by TRANNAC. "You don't believe in God, you curse astrology," he exclaimed suddenly in a strong tone, making Doem angry. He kicked him, making him silent. Inside was the bald man, not dead, but still effective against him. That's why he was caught again. But before he could drag the suitcase away, he was continuously prevented from doing so. "Can I see you later?" But after asking the girl from the other family if she liked Doem or not, he didn't get an answer. He immediately pressed the pressure point, making the girl faint. That's the only way to let himself go, not being obstinate here. Can't get home until tomorrow morning. When he woke up, Doem found himself alone in the room, as TRANNAC had already left. He quickly went into the study to jot down what had been admonished, but his goldfish brain couldn't remember everything he had been told. However, he tried hard to recall, even though he didn't know who Quan Nika was, and focused on remembering the school uniform. He struggled to decipher the Chinese characters, and upon realizing it was Chinese, he happily ran back to his elder brother's room to find a dictionary without bothering to look outside, where his elder brother was tied up, with blood streaming from his temples as he struggled. At this point, TRANNAC had taken Doem back to his secret base. Upon opening the suitcase, the elephant-like figure contorted and twisted to fit inside the cramped space, quickly grabbing Dom's leg and dragging him across the floor to find a safe. He shamelessly wanted both to negotiate, just as long as he could vomit out the safe's password, allowing him to arrange for Dom's solemn demise. Of course, TRANNAC wouldn't easily forgive Dom, but out of mercy, he allowed him to choose an outfit to wear before his death. Just hearing that made Dom so scared that he quickly bowed his head, begging for mercy. Although his limbs were disabled, his head was still being flicked up and down like a spring. However, looking into those extremely cold eyes, he could only blurt out the password before it drove TRANNAC mad. But who would be interested in these three methods of settling debts, when all he wanted was a bit of money to get by? He grabbed the old man's head and twisted it when he noticed the painting hanging on the wall, depicting a ship that looked fancy and was said to have a maximum speed of 30 knots. Desiring the ship in exchange for sparing his life, TRANNAC's words were as trustworthy as a snake oil salesman's. Not only did he eliminate the old man, but he also caught another bald man and sentenced him to death for fun. This bald man was the one Dom sought help from in his past life, but not only did he assault the girl, but he also collaborated with those brutes. So it could be said that his fate was deserved. He swiftly kicked the trump that had been tied with a rope, dragging both individuals under the deep sea, becoming shark bait. Before they could celebrate, suddenly TRANNAC's nose began to bleed, perhaps due to forcing his body to use his superpower, which his body was not yet accustomed to. Immediately recounting everything, he danced the cha-cha-cha on the ship's deck ecstatically, signaling his transformation into a pirate king. On the last day of this trip, the head of the delegation issued an order that all teachers and students must be present, or they would face severe penalties. At this moment, Teacher Liu was in a panic, not knowing where that divine punishment was coming from. He was taking countless puffs of his inhaler, fearing that he would be harmed to death by TRANNAC this time. Suddenly, he saw the head of the delegation personally coming to find him because he was the only student absent, which made Teacher Liu turn pale with fear. He could only be scolded since he was busy playing games at some internet cafe, which made him look down on that name. Although he had a bit of power, he could only curse his father on top of Teacher Liu's head, leaving him helpless. He was just an ordinary soldier sent by the education center to be the assistant principal, but he acted like he was someone superior. Even though he searched for TRANNAC for half an hour, he couldn't find a trace of him. KAAKCHA wanted to make a fuss about this and demanded to report to the police that a student was missing. Just hearing the words police made the head of the delegation turn pale, because he knew he would be held responsible and couldn't avoid punishment. Although his sweat was pouring like rain, he still tried to justify that he needed more time to search, probably just wandering around. However, Ma piled everything on Teacher Liu's head, because he was responsible for TRANNAC, so he must know whether he had acquaintances here or not. Ma turned extremely happy when he wanted to find his luggage to see if there were any clues. So, everyone rushed back to the accommodation, making Teacher Liu sweat profusely, his trembling hands not daring to open the door until he was urged. Then, he could only close his eyes and take the risk. From a horrified face, he suddenly turned into panic within a split second, silently thanking the heavens because TRANNAC had returned, wearing only a towel around his waist, his body curved and seductive. So, he was scolded by the head of the delegation until next year, not daring to show his face anymore, and could only fabricate excuses, saying he went to play games instead of admitting he went to rescue his wife. While Teacher Liu was enjoying himself, relishing the moments, someone grabbed him by the head and twisted his neck. He immediately noticed the burning gaze and instantly transformed himself into a hero rescuing a damsel in distress from the head of the delegation, diverting attention from his previous mishap. This made the head of the delegation overlook his absence and only requested TRANNAC to write a disciplinary report. Before he could even express his gratitude towards Teacher Liu, he was scolded harshly, leaving him deafened by the shouting. So he could only show a bit of his gratitude by deleting the recorded conversation about Teacher Liu being accused of bribery. After resolving the matter, TRANNAC stood in front of the girls' hostel to find KHAKKK. He encountered a very reliable friend who invited him to peek at their friend bathing, which made him slightly dazed, but he soon saw the beauty of the girl bathing with her hair tied up on the balcony, waiting for KHAKK to finish bathing before joining her. TRANNAC trusted the words of the girl he met earlier, saying she wanted to admire the snow, so he invited her here to watch, giving her a can of Coca-Cola and buying some illegal goods to make her slightly plump, so that place would be more abundant. Then he started to share his feelings, saying he was very happy today because he could do what he wanted. He felt he could control his life now, which impressed KHAKK, who was amazed by TRANNAC's seriousness when he asked if he could promise him something, making the girl fantasize that she was being asked to hold hands and hug. But all these were just her dark thoughts. TRANNAC just hoped KHAKK could write him a disciplinary report because he was lazy. At this time, KHAKK's elderly father was extremely worried about his daughter, because before boarding the ship, he saw her teasing a boy. He was worried about his daughter, who was originally academically poor and now in love early, only to stay in high school. As soon as he entered the classroom, the teacher quickly stepped into Tran's class, even though Tran wasn't his student, causing a commotion because someone was about to be exposed. The silent space made TRANNAC, who was dozing off, wake up and see the homeroom teacher standing on a chair, sweating profusely, because the subject teacher had been injured due to the slippery snow. Therefore, the homeroom teacher would be the substitute teacher and assigned a bunch of assignments. Anyone who didn't score enough would have to go outside to shovel snow, and as expected, no one else but TRANNAC would. So KHAKK immediately grabbed a broom and rushed outside to help, leaving the homeroom teacher inside with tears of frustration. "Whose child are you to be so filial towards boys?" he muttered to himself. Witnessing this scene, TRANNAC always found himself facing the homeroom teacher's stern expression. Even when he had no reason to, he would find something to try to punish TRANNAC, like making him shovel snow. But it was even worse when he asked about the representatives at the National Congress, turning a blind eye to familiar faces, making TRANNAC sigh deeply with frustration. Quickly grabbing the broom to fulfill his duty, this time the teacher ordered him back because there was another task. "Come with me to the office for a while," he said. But at that moment, the police guards came looking for TRANNAC because it was related to his mother, who was recently granted permission for family visits in prison. Of course, TRANNAC couldn't know why his body hadn't visited his mother before, but by looking at his family's circumstances, he could guess the reason. The homeroom teacher quickly sensed his feelings and intervened. Even though TRANNAC was mischievous, he was still just a child and shouldn't be pressured. This touched TRANNAC deeply, as he never expected this stern teacher to be so compassionate. After dismissing the guards, the teacher sighed, realizing that TRANNAC was a very pitiful child, and tried to reassure him, reminding him not to feel like a burden and to share his difficulties. He seemed to have a change of heart towards TRANNAC. Then, looking at the clock, he invited TRANNAC to his house for dinner. Meanwhile, KHAK, who was casually lounging and eavesdropping on drama, suddenly saw TRANNAC's gloomy face leaving with his father, startling her. She quickly ran inside, feeling embarrassed about her disheveled appearance and uncouth behavior, and within moments, transformed herself outside with a short dress, makeup, and well-groomed hair. Even though it was almost bedtime, the homeroom teacher quickly sent them both off to their respective destinations. TRANNAC, who was doing homework in the dining room, while THAKHA went outside to the living room for her favorite hobby of watching handsome Thai actors. Despite that, they couldn't separate our relationship. TRANNAC quickly wrote and drew something and tossed it to his mom. Of course, it wasn't a love letter, just a way of showing how good his dad was, making his mom sit behind us, both of us feeling annoyed when the two little ones exchanged glances of affection. Despite this, homework wasn't done. They kept passing notes back and forth, making the homeroom teacher tear up the newspaper in frustration. 2 hours passed, and they only passed notes 32 times to Bill. Meanwhile, KAAKHA was caught eyeing handsome guys 51 times, making the homeroom teacher angry, standing up and yelling, but not scolding. Trying to keep calm, she decided to go outside to buy food to cook to avoid seeing his face, but ended up providing evidence of the mischief at home. Despite claiming to dislike TRANNAC, she gave him a giant duck thigh in just 3 minutes. He quickly devoured it, swallowing all the food in his mouth, like he hadn't eaten for thousands of lifetimes, then shamelessly asked for more rice, all while exchanging flirty glances. This made the homeroom teacher furious, kicking him out of the house. It's like raising bees in silk. But just as he stepped out, not long after, he encountered KHAKHA's mother. Just as the saying goes, the older the ginger, the spicier. Just as they crossed paths, he realized she was KHAKHA's mom because they looked so alike. As he stepped down to the floor, he smelled cigarette smoke from a car, similar to her scent earlier, making him worriedly look up at the house, fearing his homeroom teacher might have horns longer than a unicorn's. The next morning, while TRANNAC was diligently studying, he was suddenly interrupted by a hand touching his, held by none other than the homeroom teacher, who was skipping class today, so he had scored every nook and cranny to find him. Seeing this, TRANNAC offered him a cigarette from his pocket, maintaining a professional demeanor, as if trying to light it. But the homeroom teacher confiscated the whole pack and stuffed it into his pocket, warning about TRANNAC's future, like two friends discussing their feelings. When asked about his future, he felt that living like this was extremely good, carefree and peaceful, able to enjoy the tranquil lives he never experienced in his past life. Partying and enjoying oneself wasn't necessarily a bad thing. He received a fiery gaze from the homeroom teacher and had to play down his words. Just kidding, big brother, why so serious? Right after being asked about his plans for the future, he immediately outlined a plan in his mind. With a few gold bars and some dollars received from the old bald man, he could live for a while. If he wanted to later, he could just pay rent and buy another house, wait for 2 years for the price to rise, and then sell it for a profit. Surprisingly, the homeroom teacher arranged everything and handed him a letter of introduction to use to get a job somewhere with good benefits, leaving him speechless with gratitude. Who said he was dumb? In about 25 years, people like him will be extinct. So, after some leisure time, at the end of the day, he made the decision to visit his mother in prison. After all, he couldn't avoid it forever. Just seeing her son, who hadn't bothered to visit her in so long, even just once, made her burst into tears. Oh dear, maybe my son hates me so much. But he didn't want to get involved in the drama of this mother-son relationship, so he just brushed it all aside, making her overjoyed. When the prison announced that visiting time was almost up, tears began to flow uncontrollably as TRANNAC tried to find his sister, the daughter of another mother, who was only 5 years old. She was the cause of endless worry for her, surprising him greatly. He never expected that in this life, he would gain another younger sister, and he immediately agreed to become a member of the Women's Union, which then took him to his sister's place. TRANNAC tactfully bought some extra snacks and candies, as well as some wine for the frequent visitors who came to see the little girl. Her recent condition seemed fine. When the mother of this body, along with the man, were imprisoned, the little girl was sent to be cared for by the man's younger brother. Upon seeing the officials, they were warmly welcomed, but TRANNAC seemed uncomfortable until he learned the situation, and then greeted them warmly. On the other hand, at the other end, the woman made it clear that this was her biological sister. While they constantly talked about how well they took care of the little girl, a glance was enough to reveal the truth. The old worn-out shirt was from who knows when. While the two siblings were playing, TRANNAC peeled a banana for the little girl, who hesitated to eat it, and then looked at the man as if asking for permission, making him break out in a cold sweat. He hastily explained that it was her brother's banana and told her to eat it. Seeing the little sister enjoying her meal, he wanted to give her some candy, but it was snatched away by a mischievous kid who provocatively stuck his tongue out, still milky around the edges. Kids being fast friends was normal, but how could TRANNAC overlook it until now? They were delighted, pretending to be naive, especially with DAPTU's favorite chicken thigh. After returning, the officials kept talking about how the association would always monitor and watch over the little girl, ensuring that DIEPU wouldn't suffer. On the surface, TRANNAC could only rely on the officials, but not entirely, as they were still too young. He couldn't see through all their hidden intentions, thinking that the drama they staged was true. Looking up at the balcony, he only saw freshly washed clothes, but none of the girl's belongings. Although the clothes seemed very clean, the elbow area was worn out, and there were plenty of loose threads, indicating that they were hand-me-downs from the woman's son. Moreover, instead of being indulged like the mischievous kid, TIEBIEB ate everything without leaving a trace. Even the bones were clean, spotless. Despite receiving $200 a month from the United League, they treated the little girl poorly, worse than a pawn. Lighting up a cigarette, he reasoned that since he had taken over someone else's body, he might as well do something to help. When TRANNAC stepped outside, he was surprised to see that the guy was still standing in front of his door. But inside, they revealed their true faces by continuously beating the little girl with a stick and ordering her not to cry out loud. Seeing that there were no officials present at the moment, there was no need for further pretense, so he pushed TRANNAC immediately. But it seemed like he was asking for trouble. TRANNAC swiftly kicked him, making him fall to the ground, writhing in pain. The old woman also quickly rushed over, accusing him of daring to hit her husband. But TRANNAC lightly pushed her away, sending her tumbling into the other world. She quickly grabbed hold of that miserable guy's leg and dragged him across the floor, making it clear that everyone in this house was despicable. When the old lady joined in, intending to insult him, despite being her biological grandson, and considering the little one harmful and the adult a nuisance, TRANNAC couldn't be bothered to converse with scum like them. So he immediately opened the door and decisively ushered him out. Seeing that scoundrel hanging outside the balcony, he threatened that anyone who dared to approach would be dropped instantly, making the old woman start to fear, desperately pleading for mercy and promising anything to make him happy and smile. Finally, the creature had learned to speak human language, so he spared his life and let him back into the house. The old lady's dentures almost fell out in shock, but she still had an extremely good tone of voice as she began to berate the wretched one. "You are just unlucky, a lowly worm, born without a father. I've told you before, you'll be run over by a car and choked on rice." But seeing TRANNAC's demeanor, the guy quickly became even more scared, ordering the two idiotic women to shut up and begging and tremblingly asking TRANNAC what he wanted. Seeing his fearful demeanor, TRANNAC quickly entered the kitchen, took out a knife to threaten them. They played their roles as if the old woman was about to fall into the pit, acting extremely flustered, but standing up to shield their children, knowing no fear of guns, was a very interesting reaction that pleased TRANNAC immensely, so he put the knife down. When the old woman accused him, asking if he wasn't afraid of the law, he replied sarcastically, saying that he was discussing the law with a legal expert. After all, there was no bloodshed today. At most they would be caught and have to write a report. No need to be put in chains. He knew his current position very well, and immediately ordered his wife to shut up and went alone to TRANNAC, shivering and begging for mercy. TRANNAC didn't want anything from them. He just wanted to take his little sister away. He saw through them. Their refusal was because that monthly $200 was a significant sum, and when it accumulated over time, it became substantial, plus half of the money left by the girl's parents before they went to prison. But he didn't care about that money, yet they didn't understand and insisted. So he kicked one of them in the leg, and there was a loud thud from the screen, indicating that it wasn't a strong negotiation. He was here to let them know. They flew into a rage when TRANNAC mentioned the 7-year-old boy's conscience, frightening the old lady, who quickly handed the girl over to TRANNAC like clearing a debt. But he still wanted to hear the girl's opinion, introducing himself as her half-brother, and if she wanted to go with him. Her eyes immediately welled up, agreeing to go as long as he promised not to hurt her. He looked at them as if they were a bunch of animals and changed their names. From now on, she would be Tiudiep. After leaving that nightmare house, she went on a shopping spree, returning home in fancy clothes and with plenty of food. She saw KHA waiting outside and suddenly noticed a cute girl with a cheese stick, wondering where she had come from. TRANNAC teased her by calling him Dad, making KHA's legs unable to support her, causing her to fall to the ground. But after hearing the girl call him Dad, he understood that he was being teased and grimaced. KHA asked where he had been the past few days because her dad was always looking for TRANNAC, rain or shine. A few days ago, he returned with swollen legs from a fall, so she was worried he'd been waiting for her for a long time. So she wanted to invite him in for some hot tea, but since it was almost dark, going inside wasn't convenient, so they went to another restaurant. She then revealed that her dad used to be a homeroom teacher and often brought a male student home to eat because his family was absent, and he was either bad at studying or liked to fight. In one scuffle, the male student pushed him over, and that evening, he ran to their house, knelt down, crying and pleading for the teacher not to care about him because he wasn't worth it. Years later, the male student died on the street from a stab wound, and the homeroom teacher began to collapse because he had ignored it, resulting in a tragic outcome for a student and giving up being a homeroom teacher, causing his salary to be reduced. TRANNAC seemed to understand that maybe he didn't want to follow that same path, so he made an effort to care for him. While they talked, Tiudiep sat there patiently, without touching a single piece of food, even offering TRANNAC to eat first. When Ken was brought out, he was delighted and eagerly looked at the sweets, his eyes lighting up with joy. He wanted to share them with his older brother, tears welling up in his eyes, promising to be obedient and help with household chores, hoping TRANNAC wouldn't send him back to that scary house. TRANNAC immediately reassured him that he wouldn't have to go back there again. Tiudiep's obedience made him doubt life itself. They were siblings, not resembling each other, but TRANNAC quickly noticed Tiudiep's cleverness in eating slowly. He wondered why they hadn't gone back to eat with their homeroom teacher, fearing he might have to shovel snow as punishment. It turned out KHA's parents often argued, and since her mom often came back from work to nag at the teacher, he wasn't in the mood, so he gave her $50 to go out and eat with her friend. As soon as he heard the money, TRANNAC brightened up and wanted to split that $50. After taking KHA home, he thought he'd get a hug from the beauty, but instead, she wanted to cuddle with Tiudiep, making his heart feel withered and empty, like it turned to stone without being touched. But as he was about to leave, he saw an expensive car pull up in front of the house, and the person inside was KHA's mom, which darkened his face again. So he worked at noon, and early the next morning, as soon as he woke up, he was greeted with a table of food prepared by TIEUDIEP, which made his face darken again. He marveled at how a 5-year-old could cook so well. Surely, she must have been exploited a lot before, but still tried to trick food into his mouth while constantly giving her a like. When he found out TRANNAC wasn't going to school because he was worried about him being alone at home, it made TEUDIEP's face sad, fearing she'd become a burden, and even her youngest brother would eventually hate her. Seeing this, he reluctantly agreed to stay. Today, I will deliver books to school, but they say poverty is bitter. Just after school, my old worn-out bike was nowhere to be found. Your dad's bike was in such a state, yet they took it. I immediately reported it to the security guard. My bike has been stolen by them. However, after seeing the desolate look with sad eyes, it seemed like it had been kicked by my boyfriend. I can quietly find a way to prepare a new bike myself and then sell it. Without bait, how can you lure a wolf? Immediately after selling it in the middle of the street, it seemed that within moments there were 2 greedy guys who wanted to touch and feel. While TRANNAC stood inside watching everything as if he didn't show up, to let them lead to the den and catch them all. They followed to a small area for buying and selling materials. Inside, a bald-headed guy stood crookedly, exactly as claimed to be the new bike type. It's still original, but they want to buy it at the old price. Despite being a new type of bike, they dare not whisper to this big guy. Suddenly, the fence outside was creaking, while TRANNAC was freely indulging in his passion for climbing the fence. The bald guy hurriedly went out, sneeringly changed places to play elsewhere with the kids. This made him sigh. It's like an invitation to drink wine, but then you want to drink wine as a punishment. A rope appeared from inside the shirt and then pushed the door in. Don't forget to close it to prevent them from escaping. Seeing this attitude of TRANNAC, the bald guy glaringly demonstrated himself as a big brother. But TRANNAC didn't care about his twisted arms. He kindly stayed here. He quietly asked where your family's safe was hidden. So that guy introduced himself as a big brother, long-standing in the business. When he was young, he tasted prison food for 2 years. Then luckily got to know and study under an old master. When he went out, he did legitimate business, sitting cool and eating gold. Ghosting swords. Unexpectedly, today made him bleed while holding a crowbar ready to swing down a blow. But as soon as he cackled, he was immediately wrapped around the leg by his chain, then pulled away like pulling a cart to find an egg. At the intersection, there was a crackling sound, making it cry out in pain. It was extremely miserable. Just looking at it makes you feel sorry. You can only reveal the money in your pocket, making your eyes sparkle. After seeing him leave, he called his gang. You lot, stop fooling around and get back here now. Our house has been robbed. Despite this, he didn't bother to go himself and just sat idly by the roadside stalls, facing the place where bicycles were being bought. While leisurely counting money inside, a few friends were enough to live on for a few days. Just after finishing eating, he spotted a bike parked with a frog sticker in front of the training ground, making him smirk. Finally, his wait paid off as he immediately rushed them, causing chaos, then checked on the situation of his gang leader if he could still maintain his lineage. He was bitter when his face was still green because the money, $60,000, was meant for buying motorcycles within 2 days. A guy asked if a kid seemed harmless or not, then just gestured to go outside. TRANNAC flashed his wicked smile. "Baby, I'm back," causing the guy to squint in frustration, then ordered his gang to attack and close the door to block his escape route. However, they didn't know they were blocking their own way of living. TRANNAC was surrounded, and a guy with a bloody towel rushed forward with a wrench in his hand. But TRANNAC simply grabbed him, easily breaking his arm, leaving the bald guy behind, his eyes bulging in fear. Play stupid, then face the consequences. Armament Plato. All were stacked neatly, with the guy who taunted having a split forehead and his black eyes receding. But before he could play, he ordered his henchmen to come to heat up the situation, making the guy bow his head and beg while crying, "Boss, I know I was wrong. Please spare us a way to live. We've taken the money, he's injured. Why are you so cruel to us?" Seeing this, TRANNAC didn't bully the kids anymore and requested, as he was fed up with his own bike, making him seem like he struck gold when he found a top-notch authentic Yamaha bike from Japan. Folding his hands with a radiant face, "Sir, are you satisfied?" Yet, he remained silent, seeming unsatisfied, almost scaring the birds away. But he was actually just asking for a helmet, needing a high-quality one made of cotton fabric to prevent fogging for night rides. Seeing that he understood, TRANNAC let it go. This time, he just hated bald guys with hair and didn't want to appear tough in front of kids, making the guy cry his eyes out, "Boss, my hair fell out naturally. No man Thuongquan supported me to get hair transplants." While he was driving his supercar, he spotted the familiar figure of the lovely girl. He, the frog, teasingly said, "Want to go for a ride with me, beautiful?" But he was shot down. "What, are you crazy? It's like -10 degrees out here. No way, I'm freezing to death." As per his habit of scanning his surroundings, he noticed the beautiful brooch pinned on her chest, a gift from his mother's friend who had visited KHAKKHA. He thought it was just an ordinary gift, but he could immediately tell it was from the Clip Apples line, worth only a few $100s in today's salary era, yet someone had given such an expensive branded item. After sprinkling some flattery, he took out a box of food from his jacket and handed it to KHAKKA before speeding away. At the same time, a girl was standing in front of the mirror, muttering to herself. Obviously, she wasn't talking to a ghost, but was actually Doem practicing his greetings to all his classmates. He, a new transfer student, while his elder brother was eavesdropping outside, was actually looking for TRANNAC at school. At that moment, the homeroom teacher was working, but KHAKHA came to deliver lunch, ostensibly to let him eat outside comfortably, but actually sat down at the desk to work, intentionally writing the class list, arranging for him and TRANNAC to be in the same class. After the last exam period, the homeroom teacher couldn't help but praise him, although recently, he had only copied his friend's work, not actually studying anything. The teacher was worried about a high school student taking care of his little sister, so he suggested sending her to kindergarten, which would be more convenient for TRANNAC's studies. While they were talking, they saw KHAKHA's mother returning from work for the first time, and they were introduced properly. Seeing the children worriedly outside the gate, facing the impending war, she glanced at TAEUDIEP, who was trembling, and reassured him. She promised that from Monday to Friday, she would stay here until the end of the day, ensuring to pick up her little sister first and then taking care of him. Finally, they ended up being in the same class. He reluctantly sat next to a weirdo, though he secretly enjoyed it but pretended to be surprised, not wanting him to sit beside him. As soon as the head teacher arrived, he immediately divided the students into two groups and arranged TRANNAC to sit at the back of the class so he could dominate. At this moment, there was a kid flipping through the class's book, hoping that the student with the lowest grades wouldn't affect him. However, looking at the notebook of that kid, TRANNAC remarked, "I personally prefer Bakma Ki Tai Fong, a novel, more." This comment made the kid gleeful unexpectedly, not expecting to meet someone from his circle in this class. So after school, TRANNAC went straight to the nursery to pick up TIEUDIEP. But upon seeing him, her eyes filled with tears, making TRANNAC burst with joy, fearing that his little sister, on her first day of school, had been bullied. But in fact, she was just relieved that he had come to pick her up, fearing he would never come for her. So the two siblings went to the temple together. On their way back to school to return the bicycle, TRANNAC saw a very cute girl and immediately took out his chocolate to lure her, which she gladly accepted. This adorable act made LATHANAC jealous, knowing that she didn't have such cute siblings. Recalling the time when they had to beg their parents to find her dad so they could be siblings, they had planned to visit KHAKHA's house to eat heartily. But unexpectedly, the head teacher had to work overtime, so they couldn't go home early. Therefore, they went out to explore the world together. They went to an internet cafe to play games, While TRANNAC went to the restroom, a group of drunk people came in. Among them was the crooked nose guy who TRANNAC had previously sent packing. Yet, coincidentally, he met KHAKK again. In the meantime, while teasing and joking, TRANNAC had finished comforting Guyot. After solving his emotional turmoil, when he stepped out, he saw his little sister looking scared. He quickly embraced Hangtu and asked with deep concern, "Have you just been discharged from the hospital?" Suddenly, someone barged in, making him almost curse, seeing the friendly face of TRANNAC. The guy with the Sunao hairdo didn't know what he was doing and pointed his finger everywhere. Immediately, LATHANA jumped in. "Which jerk dares to mess with my buddy? Come out here and face me." This made the troublemaker bolder, but he didn't notice the sudden change in his big brother's expression, which turned as sour as someone with a decade-long constipation. Yet LATHANH didn't need to throw fists. Just mentioning his father was enough to intimidate them. If you got something to say it now. In the blink of an eye, their attitude changed 180 degrees. Now flattering and quickly leaving, just a misunderstanding, they claimed. But they couldn't run that easily. The troublemaker pulled out his moves, passed down, quick to call for backup. As LATANH signaled his master, Ka, someone was ready to take on the troublemaker. The giant, bigger than a bear playing cards, stood up, asking, "You dare touch my baby brother's hair?" Immediately, LATHANH pointed to the troublemaker, but he feigned ignorance. In the middle of the commotion, attempting to calm things down, using his boss's name, he got slapped hard, turning 180 degrees, straight to the hospital for the second time. But it wasn't that easy to let him off. They gave him a beating. Despite their efforts to intervene, using the boss's name, they were promptly knocked down, then kicked out of the restaurant. Afterward, many came forward to LATHANH, offering assistance, saying, "Just call me sweetheart." But when turning to TRANNAC's group, they humbly acknowledged, "This playground belongs to the little guy's family." Yet, they were extremely humble, vowing to help anytime, now that they were brothers. TRANNAC didn't expect this kid to be the boss's son, as his influence was well known in the area. He had started as a mere sand laborer, but later, through ups and downs, became a powerful figure. But it ended tragically when bigger forces took notice. Meanwhile, LATHANH was discreet, not using his status to coerce, remaining a genuinely kind kid. When taking KHAKH home, they didn't see the head teacher anywhere, even though all the lights at school were off. TRANNAC asked her to look after TIEUDIEP for the night, as he had work to attend to, then left without further explanation. And as expected, the head teacher was where he had anticipated, sitting in a corner, lost in thought, smoking his cigarette. Upon seeing a man with the last name Deo stepping out, the head teacher immediately approached. Witnessing them conversing, TRANNAC couldn't help but wonder what the head teacher was up to. In that moment, he handed the Deo guy a briefcase, only to be shoved away, causing the money inside to spill out, and he was cursed as trash, leaving the head teacher seething with rage. Promising to make things right, he was left defeated as the car drove off into the distance, leaving him to sit despondently on the ground. KJKK's mother quickly pedaled over to assess her husband's condition, further fueling the head teacher's growing anger. He was on the verge of lashing out, but restrained himself, sighing heavily instead. Both of them then headed back home, leaving behind a heavy atmosphere. Indeed, things were turning out differently from what TRANNAC had imagined. The next day, someone arrived with a loudspeaker and banners, demanding that the head teacher pay his debts. This attracted numerous students to come and watch, making KHAKGG turn pale with fear. Unexpectedly, her father was involved in this ordeal, not running away or fearing retribution. The head teacher then produced the briefcase he had prepared the night before, handing it over, reminding them that this was a school and not a place for disturbances. With the money taken, they left, achieving their goal of tarnishing the head teacher's reputation, before retreating. 2 days later, they returned, worrying KHAKHA. Seeing her father endure this, She surely didn't want her daughter to witness such disgrace. After that incident, there were countless rumors and ridicule from the students. The head teacher's dignity, built over a lifetime, collapsed in an instant. This became the hot topic for the students to discuss, making it impossible for him to stay. He had to ask permission to return home with TRANNAC. TRANNAC then asked LATHANX to help him with two tasks: to see where the debt collectors were and to skip class. Despite the bold assertion, TRANNAC doubted anyone would believe him. Nevertheless, he was confident he could help the teacher repay his debt, and for the second task, he simply needed permission to skip class. So within an hour, LATHANH provided intel for him, grabbing his motorcycle to head out in search, and located the Quaco Financial Company nested on the third floor of this ramshackle building. So he promptly headed to their lair, extremely polite, knocking on doors to get that person to come out. Both swiftly engaged in a quick back and forth. What's the deal? Looking for someone? Looking for who? Looking for you. And then quickly concluded the game there. He delivered a swift kick, sending him flying backward, crashing onto a nearby table, flattening it. While he cheered them on, those with knives wielded knives, those with guns wielded guns, swiftly trying to kick and punch back to give him a chance to let off steam. Immediately, a bored thug lunged at him, only to be met by his boss's frying pan, sending him crashing into the wall, becoming an exhibit of macabre art, transformed into a caring mother embracing a child, snatching the super-fast binoculars being scrutinized below up onto the man's body. Seeing this, the remaining crew quickly grabbed their hot merchandise to dry blood, but within a minute, they all lay prone, grabbing the red-haired guy's head and pulling back a chair for him to sit on. "You've been standing too long, you must be tired," he ordered, making it clear he wasn't the one pulling the strings, but just the best person to know. So he immediately made a draft to let him know what a festival was, bending a little finger up into the sky as a signal, considering it a start, immediately revealing his name, surname, and hometown. Of course, he didn't ask, "What color underwear are you wearing today?" but only wanted to know if this person had ever been in prison. This made him hesitate and feel apprehensive, afraid to answer. Immediately, another finger was bent, causing the guy to feel pain, and he quickly replied that he had served 3 years in prison for causing injury to another person. After exchanging casual greetings, he immediately got into the main issue, wanting to know where their safe with the documents owed was hidden. After getting a bag full of money, he felt more comfortable. Making money this way was indeed fast and efficient. Indeed, he was of the same breed, not like the old man on the shirt. But at this point, it wasn't enough. So he asked, "Where are the papers for the debt they lent at exorbitant interest rates that they haven't even touched yet?" He made him fearfully sweat even more and quickly pointed out that everything was in the cupboard, in the cabinet behind. He quickly grabbed the documents from inside to search, and when he saw the name of the head teacher, he immediately threw a box of matches, burning all the stacks of papers. Upon seeing this, the ringleader immediately put on a show. "Do you know who Tao's boss is? He won't spare you for sure." But he countered with a shocking question. "Do you know who your own grandfather is?" Even if it was his great-grandfather, he still wouldn't know who he was, wearing his hat low. Lightly, he asked for the guest's phone. Of course, not to jot down contact information for faux beau, but to snatch all the phones. Once he had them all, he tossed them out the window without remorse. Meanwhile, the heads of their gang were dining at a roadside cafe, and news quickly reached their leader. So he pondered incessantly, considering who had dared to mess with their turf. Immediately, he mobilized 500 of his men, ready to turn this place upside down if necessary to find the troublemaker. Then, he drunkenly ordered his driver to return home, but with a bit of aimless wandering. He slept for about 10 minutes before realizing this wasn't the way home. He knew his place had fallen into someone else's hands. So he lit a cigarette and offered one to the other person. But after being refused, he quickly took advantage of the opportunity to open the window and scout. He discovered he'd been taken to the outskirts. Quickly, he pulled out a wad of cash from his pocket. That was all he had left. If the bandits wanted to rob him, having money might spare him. But when TRANNAC mentioned his name, it made him break out in a cold sweat. knowing he was surely being targeted. He tried to force a smile, but inwardly, he was terrified. He wanted to offer more money to let him go, but before he could even reach into his pocket to grab his phone and call his crew, he was kicked in the gut. In this desolate place, it took an hour for his men to find him. By then, they had already dug his grave. Immediately, they pulled the car back, fully equipped to bury him alive at any moment. He asked for a cigarette to ease his dry mouth and mentioned their boss's mistress, who had been begging for a child for 5 years. This terrified the fat man to the point of turning pale. Little did he know, this matter could also be investigated. He pretended to be busy, probably needing to go relax and enjoy himself. He called a few girls to come and have fun. Immediately, TRANNAC understood his meaning. Tomorrow, I'll instruct the ticket buyer to send your family to Thailand for a vacation, 10 days away from this place. Achieving his goal, he didn't want to lift a finger. He opened the car door for him to call his own ride home. Seeing TRANNAC leave, he breathed a sigh of relief. But then he turned around and saw a gigantic hole that had been dug long ago. If he hadn't followed his orders earlier, he might have been buried alive by now. He immediately called his subordinates, telling them to return and not to investigate the person who attacked them any further. At this moment, Mr. Liu was feeling very relaxed and happy because the bribe money he had received from TRANNAC before finally had a use. When the cashier reported a shortage of funds, he hurriedly took out $6 in small bills, but in fact, there was a shortage of $50 because there were only $8 left in the card. In the end, he could only go outside with a tiny plastic bag in hand. Just then, he suddenly saw the department head passing by and assumed he was there to rent a room, smiling slyly. However, he hadn't taken 3 steps before seeing the familiar figure of the villain TRANNAC quickly following behind, even faster than a ghost. It turned out that the department head wasn't there for leisure, but to meet the wretched face of Mr. Dao. The two seemed to have met 15 minutes before, but unexpectedly, he shamelessly sought out the department head's wife for an entire year. It turns out that this brazen individual targeted the department, where Mrs. KHAKH worked, went there to flirt, and took the opportunity to persuade her to participate in some fraudulent projects, leading to significant losses and resulting in substantial debt. After letting Mrs. KKAKH taste the sweetness, he immediately coaxed her into opening a foreign account, claiming it would bring profits but only led to losses. By that time, she could only kneel down, beg, and cry, hoping that Mr. Dao would help her, because it wasn't just her own debt, but the entire company's that was at stake. This was all part of the despicable plan of that scoundrel, as no one would be bold enough to take such a risk without a safety net. Mr. Dao had assured her that the investment was guaranteed to succeed because he had inside information. This false confidence had led her to greedily invest a large sum. It turned out that he had orchestrated all this to take revenge for an incident 10 years ago when she chose the department head over going abroad with him. But of course, his return this time wasn't for that woman. The department head immediately understood and was utterly devastated, unable to accept the reality. Given Mr. Dao's current status, even supermodels had to line up for him. He didn't need to come back to pursue an old, suffering woman. It was because, despite his age and countless affairs with many women, he still had no children, so he returned. The department head immediately denied, "KHAKHA is my child." But he was awakened by the reality Mr. Dao revealed. There was no need for a DNA test. Just looking at her face was enough to understand she was Mr. Dao's child. He realized he had been raising another man's child. Memories flooded back to him, from when she was just a fetus in her mother's womb to the days when father and daughter were inseparable. Although he knew the truth, he couldn't accept it and had always considered KHAKHA his biological daughter. However, after the business failure, her mother returned to ask for his help. He had immediately set aside his pride to borrow money from everywhere to cover the debts. The other night, he brought the money, sacrificing his last shred of dignity, hoping Mr. Dao would help smooth things over. But it was all in vain. Mr. Dao's goal was to claim his only daughter. Mr. Dao had orchestrated everything, laughing as he declared, "If you don't believe me, go ahead and do a DNA test." Then he looked at his watch, confident that his arranged person had arrived. At that moment, both were stunned when the person who entered was his own wife. He grabbed her, demanding to know whose child KHAKK was. But she denied everything, insisting, "I don't know. I don't know anything." Enraged, the department head slapped Mr. Dao, feeling immense pain himself. He turned to his wife, questioning her. "KHAKK is your child, isn't she?" But he was completely devastated when she immediately knelt down and begged for forgiveness. It turned out she married the department head to cover her shame. Instead of exploding with anger, he seemed to accept it, as if the scene had satisfied him enough, and he took his wife away. But Mr. Dao wasn't done. He threatened with the company's records, saying he would have KHAKK's mother imprisoned. He then pulled out a black card with $1 million, offering to buy their daughter and send her to live in another country. He gave them a deadline of 3 days to sign the papers, with one last chance to decide. When he returned, he laughed heartily, not because he could take the daughter, but because he thoroughly enjoyed the misery of the two people. However, just as he stepped outside, he was startled because he saw TRANNAC sitting there like a statue, holding a loaded gun pointed straight at him. Immediately, he adopted a humble demeanor, offering money and gold. But seeing that TRANNAC wasn't interested in money, he knew he was doomed. He rushed outside, screaming for help. "Somebody, help! He's going to kill me!" However, before he could reach the door, he was instantly paralyzed, unable to control his body. With just a snap of TRANNAC's fingers, he found himself struggling to breathe, losing all his strength. Lee couldn't help but pity his fate. He had come here to ruin a meticulously laid plan. TRANNAC spoke. "The department head is a good man who wants to live a peaceful life with his family. And yet, your despicable face keeps haunting him. Did he dig up your ancestors' graves in a past life?" His sharp gaze terrified the man, who hurriedly picked up his phone, desperately seeking a way to save himself. He promised to return to his country immediately and leave the daughter alone, instructing his associates to destroy all documents related to KHAKK's mother. But his attempt to show goodwill was futile. TRANNAC could see through him. Being a former villain himself, he knew that true forgiveness wouldn't come easily. Only dead men don't plot. TRANNAC, suffocating the man, who had taken a hot bath and downed a strong drink earlier. When found, it would be concluded that he died of a sudden blood rush to the brain. TRANNAC didn't forget to offer some parting advice. When you reach the Grand River and drink the water, remember in your next life not to bully good people. After that, he went back and saw the department head's bicycle. Although he didn't intend to steal, he borrowed the bike. Meanwhile, a bald man lounging nearby suddenly felt an ominous twitch in his eye. Sure enough, he saw TRANNAC approaching and immediately sat upright, preparing to enjoy the show. His underling, not understanding the situation, thought it was just some random person and started to raise his voice. Immediately, he was kicked by the bald guy, twisting his ankle, cursing, "Damn it! Didn't you see my ancestors sitting here?" Instantly, he changed his tone, becoming extremely deferential. When he learned that TRANNAC wanted to use the place to wait for someone, he quickly made tea, poured water, and massaged TRANNAC's feet with more skill than any professional. Finally, the department head passed by. TRANNAC waved and called out, "Hey, handsome, come here and chat for a bit." He lied smoothly, saying he was just working part-time there. He introduced the bald guy as a very kind owner, making the bald guy turn pale, not understanding what was happening but playing along. It turned out the department head had lost his bike and was looking for another one, as walking was too exhausting for his age. TRANNAC quickly found a $200 bike, removed the price tag, and arbitrarily reduced the price to $80. Seeing the bald guy cooperating well, he immediately suggested talking about banking records and introduced the bald guy as someone who offered loans with very low interest rates. He confidently presented himself as someone who just wanted to lend a helping hand to those in need, instantly gaining the department head's trust. After he left, TRANNAC praised the bald guy for his good performance. His wife entered, opening a briefcase full of cash. The bald guy turned pale. "Boss, I want to do honest business, not rob and kill." TRANNAC replied, "Who has time for that nonsense? Your job is to lure the department head with this $200 loan, not with his house deed or safe. Offer the lowest interest rate possible, letting him pay it back gradually over 10 years if necessary. The more attractive the offer, the more likely he'll agree." But the bald guy felt something was off with this amount of money. It was indeed a lot, consisting of 300,000 yuan. 200,000 was for the loan, and the rest was for the bicycle and motorcycle expenses from the other day, plus some extra for the bald guy. The bald guy, moved to tears, hugged TRANNAC's leg, crying loudly. Seeing his boss acting like a devoted servant made the other lackey question if this was some kind of strange loyalty test. TRANNAC confidently replied, "My intuition never fails. When you see a thick thigh, hold on tight. You'll rise to success like a kite meeting the wind." At that moment, the city's investment office had just signed a contract with a large foreign enterprise, but there was one condition. They agreed to let a student from their country enroll in a local school. This seemed like an easy task, but the catch was that the student wanted to enroll in one of the worst schools in the city. At this point, Officer Anderson had intervened, swiftly moving from the airport to the police station. His sole purpose is to investigate the real cause of the Dao family's death, yet no additional evidence was found. They had gone to such lengths because one member of the Ho family was a gold digger, earning money for their suburban associates. They wanted two things: credit and expenditure bills, as well as recent contact numbers. Within an hour, it was discovered that this Dao character was somehow related to the head of the family. However, the other end of the line affirmed that it was just an ordinary family. Therefore, an order was issued. If nothing was found within 3 days, they would return home immediately. And now, TRANNAC took KAKKA back to her house, because the child suddenly had a fever. Upon hearing the signal phrase, the lights turned green. "My parents are not home, yet you don't seem to pay attention. Instead, you just silently celebrate in your heart. Maybe the head of the household went to where the bald one was to borrow money." Upon entering, I immediately sensed that there was someone inside and became alert. But my mind only thought about flies or ants, not about the possible danger. I pushed my beak out, expecting a response, but he just shook his head, seemingly about to drop it. Then, realizing that he shouldn't sleep, he asked, "Where's the fever medicine?" Mai hurried into the room to get the medicine, while Anderson followed. Leaning on her relaxed shoulder, he concluded that I was just an ordinary person who had accomplished something significant. Not only did I write, but I also had a VIP Pro Max. When I didn't need to look at the ceiling, I could still determine that the other person was a master. Moreover, I knew the nationality of the foreigner. After finding the medicine, she stood up and left the room. He'd also quickly climbed onto the ceiling, sticking to it like a spider. After giving the medicine to KHAKHA, I immediately sensed that the person had left the house and rushed to the window to see if he had fled through this route. Mar felt excited and quickly ran down to catch him, while gold rained down from above. As for Anderson, he had already removed the head of the household from suspicion, without realizing that the bald one was cleaning outside the window like a tail. When he noticed and turned to look outside, the person had already disappeared. So, he flew straight over to the roadside and had a bowl of noodles to satisfy his hunger. Who would have thought that he would turn out to be Anderson from the APIS organization? Should I bury him or not? After all, in a previous life, I had arranged a grade for him once. APIS was a Class B organization in the underground world, established over 15 years ago. It possessed several extraordinary abilities and powers. The strongest was known as the Captain, possessing the abilities of a knight. Additionally, the organization required a role known as the Gold Digger to facilitate exchanges and provide financial support for their operations. At this moment in his past life, because Anderson had angered TRANNAC's ferocious temper, it led to that colorful ending for him. Yet in this life, that guy still had the nerve to mess with him. However, after some thought, TRANNAC decided to spare him that wretched life, fearing it might affect their boss. Anyway, they wouldn't touch him. For more than half of this life, he wanted to live a normal life, change professions, not get involved with the underworld again. At this moment, he was enjoying his life with enthusiasm, passionately playing basketball in his youth, his dashing goals causing all the girls to swoon. KHA also knew how to impress others. Instead of regular energy drinks, he prepared a hot bottle of herbal tonic. Suddenly, a group of young ruffians arrived with all sorts of strange weapons, boasting loudly that their leader was TRANNAC. But before they could crow, they were immediately interrupted by Dom, who rushed in and grabbed TRANNAC, leaving him puzzled as to why this tall guy was here. He hadn't even found enough wives yet. Did he have to die here for being too greedy? And he immediately shifted blame onto HAONAM, making a fuss while waiting for this long-awaited fight, which Lao approached at lightning speed. Just one knee strike, and that guy was lying helpless on the ground. Ma Lin whispered orders if he didn't want to die. He begged him to take him to the hospital. So he immediately seized that excuse to carry the guy away, leaving his two wives behind, unable to keep up. But they didn't give up, both relentlessly pushing and pulling everywhere, while Dion seemed to be on the verge of passing out. From the shadows, a hand reached out, gagged the guy, and dragged him in. It was TRANNAC. While he had reluctantly dumped HAONAM in the trash bin, he couldn't understand why Dion was here. It was too early now, of course. The guy had relied on the symbol on his jacket, so he asked his mom to transfer him here. Just now, he was filling out an application for enrollment in the principal's office, and then he saw him, so he hurried down. The teacher had no way to save him. TRANNAC promptly laid out some rules. Firstly, no one should mention that he had saved Dom's entire family. Secondly, after making a request, one should immediately turn away and leave, as there was another pressing matter to deal with. At this moment, KHA was acknowledging that they were only friends, despite no previous confession of feelings. Yet, she assumed on her own that she was someone else's girlfriend. When TRANNAC returned and kindly offered her a tissue, she bombarded him with questions. Luckily, Mr. Liu arrived just in time to save him from the interrogation. While the principal was searching for him everywhere, he was busy berating the parents of the students for bringing weapons onto the school grounds. As soon as he saw TRANNAC, he vented his anger about their previous confrontation without listening to reason, accusing him of causing trouble with them, even though he was the one reprimanded by the council. TRANNAC's attitude wasn't any better, responding briefly before turning and leaving for home, completely relaxed and carefree, avoiding KHA's annoying questions. However, that guy was even more cunning, going home crying to his father, which led to the headmaster inviting him over for tea. He couldn't disclose the truth about his encounter with Dom, so he could only say he was working at a nearby shop and helped fix her broken-down car on the street. Thus, they became acquainted. But don't think that by doing so, he would defend him. Instead, he was happy to see the two of them together, wanting them to become a couple so that his daughter could play at being lovesick. That way, he could protect himself from being taken advantage of. On the day of the exam, when he intended to return, KHA immediately followed him to see him off. And yet, she took advantage of the opportunity to kiss TRANNAC, leaving him standing there alone, handsome but miserable. So the next day, Dion was assigned to the same class as TRANNAC for the exam, and the teacher arranged for him to sit next to him. Immediately, KHA became jealous and made up a very noble excuse, saying that as a foreign student who hadn't mastered Chinese yet, he couldn't sit at the back of the class. Seeing the girls fiercely competing for his attention, LATHANH quickly rescued his buddy by offering Dom his seat, and then moved to sit next to TRANNAC. Once settled, the virtual rumors quickly prompted his classmate to strike up a conversation, but Dom promptly silenced him by pulling out a peculiar pen case with an image of a praying mantis engraved on it. During lunchtime, KHA persisted in her attempts to annoy him, but TRANNAC just handed him a bun and advised him not to eat from the cafeteria because their rice wasn't properly cooked. However, KHA herself was holding a tray of cafeteria food, so her criticism fell flat. As soon as his mom was called away, Diom immediately appeared, eyeing the bun hungrily and asking TRANNAC to share it with him, leaving TRANNAC in a dilemma with both his wives. Just as he was feeling overwhelmed, he heard a familiar voice, none other than HAONAM, who had his 2 chicken feather tufts cut off by his father. Seeing this, TRANNAC angrily slammed his chopsticks onto the ground, causing the bun to slide away. Immediately, HAONAM interjected, asking how he was and throwing yesterday's memories into the trash. TRANNAC pretended to be a good person, trying to act as if he should forgive him. At the same time, Anderson had found the scent of the gold digger number 4, the guy he had let float down the river before. Naturally, this group wasn't seeking revenge. They were just cautious, suspecting someone wanted to disrupt their business. Although he didn't want to skip school, he was fed up with getting involved with women and intended to relax at the Baldy's place. Unexpectedly, he was stopped in his tracks because the place had turned into a mess, with flowers and leaves strewn about, undoubtedly destroyed by someone. Immediately, he went over to the opposite stall to investigate, only to find out that the old man had been taken away by a gang of thugs. At this moment, the leader named LITHANHSON was leisurely enjoying tea during the exam. The guy at the front kept poking fun and was about to cause trouble, but when he saw trouble coming, he immediately backed off. He knew he was targeted because the boss had once been his gang leader, and now he found himself back in jail. This allowed LITHANHSON to show off his power. However, they had picked the wrong person to mess with. Instantly, one of them was thrown inside, drawing everyone's attention. As they looked towards the door, they saw TRANNAC with his familiar hat, acting as the local enforcer. Seeing someone charging in, they didn't lift a finger, but instead released the rope, pulling the troublemaker down into the water, cooling him off a bit. It had been a while since someone dared to intrude into their territory, so they immediately ordered their men to attack. However, as soon as one troublemaker jumped in, he fell straight into TRANNAC's hands without even moving. A strand of TRANNAC's hair had instantly pulled him down into the water, while the rest met the same fate. The leader of their gang now realized that this wasn't someone he should have messed with and promptly submerged himself. Winning meant becoming king, losing meant begging for mercy. Unfortunately, he wasn't a long-legged beauty, so he was immediately kicked down along with his comrades. Thanks to the floor, he could now sit there and eat noodles, but the support he had once relied on was no longer there, making it difficult to maintain stability in the future. Wanting to recruit the old man's disciples to his own side would also be challenging, especially without reputation or money. Furthermore, he didn't want to live a life of merely making illicit money from buying stolen cars. He had a dream of opening an electric car dealership. This revelation made TRANNAC reconsider this person, whom he had never expected to have such foresight. 2 years later, the electric car market would boom. TRANNAC sponsored the guy with $50,000, and with his own savings of $70,000, he had enough to open a small dealership and slowly build his business. This deeply moved him, making TRANNAC feel like his reborn parent. Wanting to repay this kindness, he decided to work hard. At this moment, a young man who didn't understand life wrote a love letter to Diom. After asking if she liked him, she heartlessly tore it up. Your dad didn't like it either. LOIT8 and THAKJ witnessed this scene, realizing that no matter how much she was chased after, she couldn't compare to the skills needed to deal with TRANNAC, who was like a stalker, knowing everything about his whereabouts. So he rode his bike to his extra job. After being informed by the supervisor, it took more than an hour for the school representative to arrive. It could only be said that he was extremely filial, or perhaps foolishly so. It was hard to tell. Seeing this, he asked his buddy to fetch a jacket for the poor guy's mother. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he then rode his bike to take KAKJ back home. Meanwhile, Diom's mother was exhausted after a long day managing her late husband's company. Just as she returned home, she noticed the moldy expression on Anderson's face as he adjusted the photos inside their house. He seemed fearless, immediately resorting to a syringe as a threat. But behind her, A woman played her cards stealthily, indicating that the syringe contained drugs. This prompted Dom Diom's mother to confess everything about how TRANNAC had saved her family. However, they were still not ready to act. At this point, they wanted to find another gold digger to replace him, leaving the family business for her to manage. Meanwhile, TAUDIEP returned home, passing through a street where 53 beautiful women left their numbers for TRANNAC. He was indeed a master of courtship, making him break out in a cold sweat. As for the kids, they learned something from somewhere. He would definitely have to scold the principal tomorrow. He then saw Diom standing ready, and immediately after, TIUDIEP, charmingly, ran over to strike up a conversation. They seemed to be on the same wavelength, each saying a sentence and the other responding, perfectly in sync. While eating together, they showed deep affection for each other. Dom also proudly boasted about her progress in pronouncing Chinese, but it was all cramped. Immediately, TIUDIEP took the stage to showcase his abilities, leaving her in disbelief that she lost to a preschooler. Thus, she agreed to leave obediently with the condition that once she improved her pronunciation, she would be allowed to search for TRANNAC. With that settled, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief and enjoy a few peaceful days. However, he noticed something unusual. On the roof of the opposite house, someone was observing TRANNAC's every move. None other than Edison's man, aiming to target him, as they had identified TRANNAC as the heroic teenager appearing in the country. Regardless of the probability, the order was clear. Capture him and bring him back to the country tonight, whether he was a dangerous target or not. All the doctors and operatives within the organization were mobilized and prepared for action. Suddenly, there was a very loud buzzing sound on the other end of the line. At that moment, the person they had arranged was captured by TRANNAC. One leg stomped flat on the ground. But seeing that he still wouldn't shut up, TRANNAC gave him an extra kick, almost spilling his guts out. Very quickly, this guy's backup arrived. Edison showed up and ordered the long-haired man to be released, then contacted the Black Panther to take the child hostage. Upon receiving the order, he descended from the wall and entered TRANNAC's house, where TIUDIEP was still watching TV, being very well behaved. But the biggest mistake of Ederson's life was threatening TRANNAC. TRANNAC swiftly delivered a powerful kick, sending the long-haired man out of this world. As Ederson ordered the killing of TIUDIEP, TRANNAC used his superpowers to stop all of the Black Panther's actions, causing him to freeze solid. TRANNAC then dragged the giant body of the Black Panther towards him with a double kin kick. Quickly, the power that could capture a leopard within 20 meters made the Black Panther realize it was the short-haired controller beside him. She used sonic waves to attack, but it was nothing. Just a glance from TRANNAC caused her to fall in pain, bleeding due to the intense pressure. While the superpower battle was ongoing, Ederson foolishly grabbed a dagger and charged forward, but he was quickly brushed aside. "No rush, baby," TRANNAC said, "just lie there and wait." He then turned his attention to the ugly-faced doctor, saying, "Hello, old lady, long time no see," which made the doctor panic and stabbed him with a surgical knife. However, with just 2 fingers, TRANNAC stopped the blade, using his superpower to break the doctor's handcuffs. It turned out that the doctor's ability was controlling knives, but TRANNAC had known this from a previous life. So, he easily dodged, captured the knife, and returned it straight into the doctor's throat. Quadra kill. At this point, Ederson realized he had messed with the wrong person and tried to run, but it wasn't that easy. "I'd already spared you, but you came to me yourself," TRANNAC said as he grabbed Ederson by the throat. Pentakill. After that, he gathered all the wrecked bodies into a car. Originally, he had a peaceful evening planned, but now he had to deal with this mess. He vented his anger on Hyen Vu when he called. "Come and collect their bodies before they become fish food," TRANNAC said, making Hyen Vu struggle to remember who he was. Then he got a name, DIEMLA, and went back. TIUDIEP went into the bedroom. That guy having lost a group of elite subordinates, probably wouldn't do anything stupid and hurried into the bathroom to take a shower, releasing a red fluid. It was because he hadn't reached his peak level from his previous life. But perhaps his current level could be considered lucky, as the power he had in his past life was deemed a glitch during an experiment. At this moment, Dormant immediately showed off by bringing ginseng to nourish TRANNAC. Seeing beautiful girls surround him, the other students couldn't help but be envious. Besides having a handsome face, being tall, and very attractive with a fit body, what else did he have? The author was indeed unfair. Seeing TRANNAC being cared for so meticulously, KAKK refused to be outdone and brought gifts as well. But just looking at them, it was clear they were from the headmaster. Though worried she might get scolded by him, she couldn't stand the ugly fashion style. TRANNAC planned to take a few days off due to having work and needing to bring in a shipment of cars to avoid his wives. Spending a few days in Nipple's capital, he handed a bundle of money to the cashier, informing them he needed to get to Luca urgently, then to ABC. But the cashier only put on a cold face, saying they would arrange a helicopter and some others, but couldn't guarantee a smooth journey. After receiving another bundle of money, the cashier's eyes lit up, assuring him the best seat. When he arrived at Luca Airport, the two CHIMRUI sisters were already there, waiting to depart. At the same time, the group leader finally saw TRANNAC's helicopter arriving. After handing over his fake identification papers and passport for verification, they shook hands. This was merely a ticket sale for a ride, not a business transaction or partnership. Therefore, any incidents during the journey would be his responsibility alone. At this moment, the older sister sitting next to him kept assessing him, thinking he was just a novice who had just started learning to climb mountains and arrived late, making her openly dislike him. Then, TRANNAC struck up a conversation. It seemed this girl's nickname was CHIMRUI, as she was a magazine model, so it was normal for others to know her. That nickname would later become the codename of his third wife, in memory of her sister who died saving her. In his previous life, there was an event that caused the whole family to die, leaving only her alive. Back then, they participated in a mountain climbing trip, but suddenly there was a snowstorm. Just as they were about to reach the shelter, her younger brother started his despicable act, cutting the rope and dragging his siblings into the abyss. Only by doing this could he inherit the family's wealth. With only the two sisters relying on each other, he still wouldn't relent. Seeing this, the older sister immediately cut her connection with CHIMRUI and directly lunged at her wretched brother, taking him down with her to protect her younger sister. Though CHIMRUI survived, the family's assets were continuously siphoned off by one person after another. Unable to bear it any longer, she took out a dagger and killed the one trying to seize the last remaining house with family memories. As a result, CHIMRUI was thrown into prison. Coincidentally, TRANNAC had a mission in his past life to kill the warden. When he broke in, he saw the warden training CHIMRUI like a duckling, deforming such a beautiful flower. He couldn't stand it and shot the warden in the left chest, causing her to writhe in pain, trying to crawl outside for help. But CHIMRUI, fueled by 6 years of hatred, immediately broke her neck. That was when TRANNAC rescued CHIMRUI. As they arrived at their destination, they quickly said their goodbyes. But before leaving, TRANNAC gave CHIMRUI a piece of chocolate that she loved in her previous life. Going back to when the whole family was climbing together, the wretched brother cut the family's rope. But this time, CHIMRUI also fell into the abyss. As predicted, TRANNAC had been waiting below and caught her safely. When she opened her eyes, she found herself lying in a tent with him, who had already prepared hot water. Suddenly remembering something, she sat up and cried out in panic, calling for her parents and sister. He gently reminded her that her family was not here, not even her cruel uncle. She recalled the exact details. In 1997, her parents had died in a mountaineering accident due to bad weather. In 1999, her older sister, her only remaining relative, attempted to fulfill their parents' wish by conquering the mountain, but also lost her life. In 2000, CHIMRUOI shot her uncle because he wanted to sell the family property to pay off his debts. Although she was acquitted, she suffered severe psychological issues afterward. The whole family died in a tragic accident, and since then, CHIMRUOI had created different personalities to imagine her family was still with her. After assuming her sister's identity, she joined the mountaineering group, but halfway through, she experienced hallucinations and used her own knife to cut the rope. Because of this, in the past life, she injured 2 people in the group and was committed to a mental institution. His mission back then was to eliminate CHIMRUOI, not the warden. But seeing the warden's extreme cruelty, he couldn't stand it and took action. All of this unfolded before her eyes, making her break down and cry. Although he couldn't help CHIMRUOI save her family, he wanted to ensure she never again endured the perversion of that prison. Standing before her parents' graves, CHIMRUOI took off the necklaces engraved with her family's names, letting go of her deep-rooted obsessions to move forward. Deciding to start over, CHIMRUOI chose to donate all her assets to a mountaineering charity. She asked if this goodbye meant they would never meet again, hesitating as she watched him leave. Unable to hold back, she immediately rushed to him, saying that no matter where he went, she would follow, without asking for anything or needing to know who he was. But for TRANNAC, he didn't want her to suffer in this life either. He wished for her to enjoy a beautiful life. Smiling as he watched CHIMRUOI walk away, he felt that this was enough for this life. At this moment, KHAKK was still sulking because TRANNAC had forgotten her birthday. Suddenly, a rock was thrown at the window. When he saw a woman with a pair of large breasts, he was so startled that he accidentally broke the window in the headmaster's office. After seeing off the principal and Mr. Liu, TRANNAC quickly went over, carrying supplies to repair the window. Having seen the school's people, he could guess that they wanted to extend the headmaster's contract because the most outstanding teacher at the school was him. But seeing the headmaster's melancholic appearance, TRANNAC couldn't help but be concerned. It seemed that the headmaster was still bothered by the loan shark incident, which had tarnished his reputation at the school. Coincidentally, there would be a spring outing on Saturday, so TRANNAC planned to cheer up the headmaster to put his mind at ease. Seeing TIUDIEP playing with HAIQA made LATHAN jealous. Having a younger sister turned out to be useful for picking up girls, but TRANNAC thought they were still too young and naive, saying, "Getting involved with women only leads to headaches and won't accomplish anything significant." He left this group under the care of his trusted friend, saying he had important matters to attend to. It turned out that his important matter was flirting. Meanwhile, HAONAM was looking very lifeless, having moved on from the gangster life with TUANKIET's daughter, and now obsessed with a Korean actor with slicked back hair. "Hey, do you know how to swim?" TRANNAC asked, using his superpower to push the boy into the lake. He watched as HAONAM struggled, shouting, "Headmaster, someone is trying to commit suicide out of sadness." Seeing this, the headmaster rushed over at lightning speed, but TRANNAC held LATHANH back to prevent him from playing the hero. The headmaster quickly jumped into the water to rescue HAONAM. Due to his age and weakness, he slipped, but fortunately, TRANNAC was always watching and managed to pull him up in time. Praising the headmaster, all the other students also praised his righteous action. TRANNAC called Dom Dioam, whose family was in business and surely knew how to spread the news. The event quickly made headlines in major newspapers and television, continuously praising and restoring the headmaster's reputation and trust to what it once was. At this moment, HAONAM felt a sense of horror with the misfortune that TRANNAC brought upon him. There was no other way for him but to carry the amulet on his person. Yet he couldn't rid himself of his many flaws when THAKJ arrived at another place. Of course, there was nowhere else but TRANNAC's workplace. When he realized that it was too late, HAONAM tried to disguise himself as a bystander. But he could only shed tears, perhaps because his report had been leaked to the authorities. That's why he was easily identified. Then, there was a car parked right by the roadside. Witnessing both of them conversing in front of the car dealership, a high school boy and a beauty queen. He quickly mistook them for TRANNAC and rushed to abduct KHAKHA. Immediately, they disappeared into the car. These people targeted him, and the thug fantasized that his own fame had spread far and wide, so his enemies came to find him. He foolishly believed that his friend could not possibly endanger the life of the principal's daughter who had saved him, so he stupidly followed them. When TRANNAC returned, he heard that KHAKHA had come looking for him, but saw no sign of her. Instead, he noticed her mother's purse lying on the ground, crushed in the middle of the road. Then, he realized that the mastermind behind everything was none other than someone named Lulai, who sought revenge for being thrown into the pond before. This bewildered the young man, not understanding the current situation. However, when told to sit down, he obediently complied. Lai became furious and slapped him in the face. It was the first time in his life that he had endured such humiliation. Back when he was thrown into the pond, he thought his lungs would burst from drinking too much water, and the young man didn't understand what he had done wrong. He wasn't teasing or provoking anyone. He simply advised the old man to drink more hot water since he was elderly, which angered the old man to the point of spitting out his tea. When TRANAC heard this, he valued his integrity even more. When asked his name again, he had to gulp down his tea once more. TRANHAONAM, do you think I've never watched a Vietnamese movie before, you imposter? But today, despite his cunningness, he had to resort to bringing him here not out of the desire to fight, but to present him with a briefcase full of money, astonishing the young man. Oh my God, I've never seen so much money in my life. But in this world, nothing comes without a price. He wanted him to join forces with the black market to monopolize the car market for the old man. He even threatened to harm KHAKHA to ensure his compliance within 3 days. This made HAONAM break out in a cold sweat, not knowing who the puppeteer was. He couldn't even finish his homework yet. Suddenly, he recalled KHAKHA, realizing that he had been mistaken for someone else, and his limbs trembled as he struggled to sift through his memories. Then, the terrifying face of TRANAC emerged, causing him to shiver in fear. If he were exposed now, he would be in deep trouble. Flashing back to his past, he was just a child born into an ordinary family who learned the value of life was money. Using violence to exploit others, he realized by age 56 that violence couldn't solve problems, only making him more pathetic. Even if he met someone he secretly liked, he wouldn't dare to date them because it would cost too much money. Until he met the beauty queen and decided to play the role of TRANHAONAM. But now, seeing KHAKHA being tied up and tearful, he had no choice but to show his manhood, puffing on his cigarette as he casually demanded more money, because what he had was not enough. He forced his arm to bulk up to maintain composure, not allowing it to tremble. His swagger amused the old man, who laughed heartily, promising to double the payment. As he was about to leave with the money, HAONAM reminded KHAKHA that he would return to signal TRANAC to release himself from his trembling state and step out the door, only to see a man on a motorcycle suddenly stop. Despite his disguise, he would recognize him instantly. He whispered that a gangster had kidnapped KHAKHA for making a drink, and it was him. After learning that her mother was inside, he advised HAONAM to return, prompting him to reluctantly leave, wanting to help but being told to leave. When a guy sees a girl looking fresh and beautiful, he immediately wants to make a move, which made the old man curse, saying, "What, are you blind? Are there not enough girls in this world?" He then ordered, Prepare a camera to record the process when the head thug gets his hands cut off. Then we'll act like we want to report to the police, but instead of a fair price, we'll offer a bribe to hush it up. Just when they were boasting about him to the heavens, they had to call back because TRANNAC was standing right outside the door. He retorted, "Your mother is afraid that they will record you flying. That's why it's so secretive." But seeing more men this time, they were very confident and unafraid, even lighting a cigarette. Seeing this, he allowed them to smoke, knowing the smoke would run out within 2 minutes or they would collapse themselves. As soon as they charged forward, he didn't hesitate to take them down one by one, feeling nostalgic for the glory days. But as soon as he smoked, he was startled when he put it in the man's eye and saw that everything collapsed like a domino, leaving only TRANNAC, who was not at ease, reaching into his shirt and pulling out a gun, catching the bullet with just 2 fingers effortlessly. Quickly approaching the 2 men, he forced them to sit down, saying from now on, the river water wouldn't mix with well water. But he wasn't a man with a compassionate heart. He returned the bullet to them and used his powers on the man's legs, leaving him paralyzed for life, only able to sit in a wheelchair. Now, seeing TRANNAC, you could ensure KHAKHA's safety and leave, but HAONAM could only stand by and watch, unable to do anything himself. After being rescued, KHAKHA's mother started crying and feeling scared again, feeling more and more distant from him, like a mysterious boss. She remembered when she was just an ordinary girl, imposing her dreams on TRANNAC. When KHAKHA went to college, she would always come to his repair shop to visit, dreaming that they would get married someday. But now she cried, not understanding the TRANNAC from before. Hearing this, he quickly stopped the car, turned around, and hugged KHAKHA tightly, using his powers to erase the terrifying memories from earlier. After all, the thugs were just ordinary people, so he had a responsibility to protect their peaceful lives and not drag them into the underworld. It's just hypnotism, making those involved forget that memory. As long as there is no stimulation, they will never remember it again. Suddenly, Dom Deom, the mother of Deom, came to visit her. But when the 2 mothers and sons were in harmony, she brought up whether there were any developments with TRANNAC or not. Upon seeing him, they all bowed their heads to show their gratitude, as he was from this province, so it wasn't appropriate to make a fuss. They specially prepared a local white wine to entertain him. So both mothers and sons emptied their glasses, even though it was their first time tasting this kind of wine, as a gesture of gratitude for TRANNAC's help to their family last time, catching the guy who had caused trouble. So the family's grudge was settled, and they wanted to exchange favors with TRANNAC without any reservation. They wanted him to take their daughter under his wing, whether he treated her as an animal or a person, as long as he accepted her. Then, they asked about the recent events in their family, but it seemed like it was just their way of repaying their gratitude by offering their daughter. However, he couldn't accept it, so he quickly downed a glass of hot liquor, expressing his gratitude and leaving. Hearing Deom calling him, while he was trying to hold on to TRANNAC, she immediately scolded him to keep quiet. But when she saw her daughter crying, she quickly came to comfort her. Now, there were only the 3 of them left at home. She couldn't run the company alone, and her older brother was too young, so they needed TRANNAC to stand up as a protector. She then harshly stated that if they couldn't persuade him, she would sell their daughter to wealthy families, or even as a mistress. Of course, they couldn't just rely on waiting for Deom to become TRANNAC's normal girlfriend, because everyone knew that his type was innocent girls like KHAKHA, who cried at the slightest thing, not someone like Deom. So, they had to lower themselves, trying to cling to him, even if people accused them of being opportunistic, just to maintain the company for her brother. The girls in the red light district laughed at HAONAM, sitting in the corner taking pictures there without money to spend on girls, but as soon as he decided to leave, he was immediately teased. Luckily, TIUHONG came out to save him and flirted, causing the young man to quickly run off to find his mother, who was working as a janitor here. After meeting his mother and having to work overtime, HAONAM had no choice but to go home alone. He sat by the roadside, smoking as if waiting for something. Suddenly, he noticed a commotion at a nearby shop, where a man was grabbing Tai Yuong's arm. It turned out she had made him climb up to the third floor multiple times because she didn't want to entertain clients but had accepted a deposit for a room. Despite her efforts to placate his anger with lies, it only made him more furious, grabbing her head violently. Out of nowhere, a bottle of water was thrown directly into the man's face. It was Ham stepping in heroically, grabbing Taiuhong and running away. However, they couldn't outrun the gang and were quickly cornered. The thug assumed Ham was Taiuhong's lover, preventing him from touching her. Realizing she had implicated someone else, Taiuhong urgently told Ham to leave, pushing the petrified young man to move. Just when the thug was about to act more aggressively, he suddenly froze upon seeing Ham's face. His expression changed to one of fear, breaking into a cold sweat. He mistook Ham for the person who had single-handedly wiped out over 70 members of Lai's gang. Immediately, he dropped to his knees, begging for forgiveness, stammering apologies, and then ran off, dragging his henchmen with him, shouting, "Let's get out of here. I don't want to go to a funeral." Taiuhong, curious about this mysterious young man, asked him who he was, but Ham himself didn't understand his own identity or why he was mistaken for someone so fearsome. At this moment, Dom appeared, sent by her mother to confront TRANNAC, feeling drenched and miserable from waiting outside for a long time. Seeing her, he handed her a dry shirt to change into. Dom, worried about what her mother had said, asked TRANNAC if he despised her because of it. He told her to forget everything her mother said and not to worry about it, which made Dom tear up, feeling as if her feelings had been rejected. Dom felt even more disheartened, questioning what was wrong with her. She feared that if she didn't become TRANNAC's woman, she would be given away to wealthy families. However, TRANNAC, unmoved by her plight, suggested they pretend to be together for the night. At this moment, Hanum took his sister Chia home and immediately heard her crying, murmuring to himself. After deciding to turn back, he was instantly given a reward by Tuhong. This immediately made the young man, who had never known the scent of a woman, high and beat up TRANNAC's door. When he wanted to send someone away, Dom immediately asked to stay for a night, fearing that returning now would mean facing failure and being interrogated by her mother about all sorts of things. She barged into his room, demanding to sleep in Tudiep's room, angrily shouting, "Am I not beautiful? Why don't you want to sleep with me?" These were the exact words Dom had said in their previous life when they first met, making him soften and comply. Just like that moment, TRANNAC hurriedly wrapped her up like a coconut worm, truly not appreciating his blessings. Before Tudiep returned, this girl sang inappropriate songs for her age, planning to complain about the school's teaching methods, but unexpectedly got scolded instead. It turned out not only did the girl watch and learn from TV, but she also taught her friends. Dom's phone call came, not knowing what had happened, but she frantically said her mother was in trouble and needed to go immediately. He could only send Tudiep to stay at Baldi's house. As soon as he arrived, he saw her mother breathing with great difficulty. Everything seemed suspicious. After taking a bath, she suddenly had a high fever. The doctor couldn't find the cause. As he lowered his head to inspect, a very unpleasant smell hit his nose. He started searching around and discovered an issue with the showerhead. Using a cotton swab to check it, he found the smell identical to the one clinging to her. Someone had poisoned the shower. When she turned on the hot water to bathe, the poison mixed with the water and gradually seeped into her body. Fortunately, it wasn't serious. As long as she didn't come into contact with the poison again, she would recover quickly. With a confident look, he said he would go out, but in reality, he went to bury the mastermind behind this incident. Piecing things together like Sherlock, he guessed that Dom's mother was not foolish enough to hire someone without a clear background. Looking at the opposite hotel, it was the perfect place to observe her. He guessed the floor number and went up. There was only one vacant room available for rent, which could be the best place for them to break in. Using his skills, he picked the lock. After entering, the room was dark, but there was a camera placed in the middle. Just as he stepped in, he was ambushed. However, the attacker was too inexperienced. He easily dodged and counterattacked with a utility knife, rendering the assailant unconscious within 10 minutes. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything valuable, only a USB with an octopus image on it. He quickly accessed the dark web. In the Underworld, mutants are classified into 5 ranks, from the lowest to the highest. Knight, higher than Knight is Viscount, then Baron, Earl, and finally Duke. Remembering his previous life, he had established a gold-ranked account for an organization, but he preferred the black-ranked account created by Holy. Now, using the account of the recent attacker, he changed the avatar to that of a heartbreaker and set out on a mission to extend Domdom's mother's life. He began engaging in flame wars everywhere, becoming an online hero with a penchant for trolling. He continuously provoked Queen Tinkong, calling her old and unworthy, which infuriated the people on the other side. They became so angry that they started firing wildly. Immediately, a girl named Elle asked why she was so angry. Upon learning that someone was causing trouble online, she wanted to deal with it herself. In a previous life, Duda was also one of Diemla's subordinates. After receiving the final order, she judged the person in front of her, regardless of the severity of their crime. As long as Diemla desired it, her mission was to send the target's soul to the Underworld. After completing the task, she reported back to the group while driving her supercar, then revealed her vulnerable side by driving straight off a cliff. Recalling past conversations with Diemla, she earned the nickname in Guda, Dull Blade, because she had to have a horse mask. However, in this life, she was just a young girl living with Queen Tinkong. When she saw TRANNAC's account offering money to buy unfiltered photos of Queen Tinkong, she immediately created 2 fake accounts to confuse the information and psychologically unsettle the opponent. Using another account, she lured TRANNAC into a trap to engage in private conversations. She rejoiced at the prospect of getting his personal information to track him down and teach him a lesson. However, it wasn't that simple. The anonymity level on the web was extremely high, and few users provided real information. She quickly devised a plan: lure TRANNAC out with a fake mission. It seemed like everything was going smoothly, but suddenly I saw the message you sent me. When will you send me the bare-faced photo of Queen Tinkong? Even though Ngudao was using a different nickname, I immediately became furious and threw my laptop. I didn't expect that person had been tracking me for lifetimes, so there was no way to deceive them. Quietly, I knew all the fake accounts of the figurehead. Even though time passed, surely now the girl was just a child under the protection of the queen. When I returned to pick up Tai Eudiep, I was immediately met with hostility. The person wanted to adopt my biological sister as their own daughter. I sternly confronted the guy. You call me grandpa, but want me to call you dad. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but feel that these two were well matched. So I decided to leave my sister with him. At this moment, KKKK wanted to seize the opportunity while TRANNAC was sleeping to ambush him. I quickly intervened and pretended to be concerned, taking him with me to catch up on supplementary lessons. We arrived at the teacher's dormitory at the house of our literature teacher. Seeing TRANNAC following me made him suspicious. It was clear that the homeroom teacher was too careless, not even managing his own daughter properly. I cheekily went straight to the kitchen, intending to disrupt the teacher's mood. Using my old trick, I handed him an envelope with money to bribe him into allowing me to study in his class. Now there was another troublemaker joining the class, but before long, there was a knock on the door. It was Haonam's father with a small gift. However, I couldn't just leave my son in this hopeless class. As I turned to kick the little guy, inside, I wanted to break down his entire life. TRANNAC, on the other hand, spelled determination. Now everywhere I went, I seemed to encounter him. It was like fate was leading us together. Originally, I had come here to study properly, but I couldn't help but disturb the little guy every moment. Even after school ended, I couldn't let the little guy go for a second. He clung to me like a shadow, but I was no different from a devil, sowing seeds of misfortune. I quickly checked the time and ran, because misfortune spreads fast in this world. Before, I was just bluffing, but now seeing him, it felt like encountering a ghost. But truly, fate is as unstoppable as the sun. TRANNAC quickly took out his super motorcycle to impress the young man. As soon as I managed to get him onto the bike, he immediately took off with me clinging onto him, leaving HALONAM red-faced. We were heading towards that spot to wait for my mom to finish work. This gave TRANNAC some time to reflect on what HALONAM had done for him. It seemed like he owed the kid quite a bit. So he let him borrow the motorcycle and ride around for a while. But instead of feeling joy, HALONAM felt extremely uneasy. Why was everything suddenly going so well? After getting fully equipped with a jacket and helmet, the young man felt proud. He thought he was the most handsome guy around. But then, he noticed TIEU8LNG picking fights with people and dragging him along. Many villagers chased after us, wanting to teach her a lesson. As soon as HALONAM saw them catching up, he quickly accelerated, leaving his pursuers behind. The red-faced chicken kid was so scared his legs felt numb. When HALONAM questioned himself, the horrific memories TRANNAC had visited upon him surfaced. Mistaking him for the culprit, he quickly kneeled down, following his own protocol. When asked about his name and hometown, he admitted to having spent 2 years in prison. Seeing HALONAM still confused, he grabbed his beer bottle and quickly resolved the situation. This intimidating demeanor made TIEUHONG freeze in her tracks. After the meeting between the two bosses, Old Lai and the chubby guy, where they spoke about the terrifying fear they had of TRANNAC, even more than humans, he received a call from the red-haired guy, who was tired of living and informed him that he had discovered the person who had previously destroyed their territory. This immediately made the chubby guy scared and wanting to run away. When they confronted him, he told them to handle it themselves and not involve him. When TIEUHON questioned HALONAM's background, noticing how even the big guys seemed scared of him, the young man seemed to regain some of the memories that TRANNAC had hidden. It seemed like he understood everything now. So, he swiftly left the other girl behind and returned home peacefully. 2 days later, they went to find TIEUHONG. Immediately, she broke down, ran to him, and hugged him, sobbing uncontrollably. One of her colleagues at the shop had passed away, and the family, being extremely poor, had borrowed money from loan sharks. Now, the elderly mother was hospitalized. HALONAM didn't let the two women dwell on their grief alone. Just as he stepped outside, 2 men in black suits entered. A fight broke out, and TIEUHONG screamed, "The person hasn't been dead for long, and you're already here to collect the debt. My friend didn't even borrow 80,000 yuan, yet you bloodsuckers are this vile, not even fearing the law." Immediately, HALONAM tried to intervene, but they ignored him and left. Just when it seemed to be over, he wanted to smoke a cigarette for some peace, but those scoundrels continued to humiliate him, calling HALONAM just a punk. This made the young man realize that what he thought he owned wasn't his at all. Even though he felt angry, he couldn't do anything because he wasn't TRANNAC. But before he could turn and leave, their car was suddenly hit by another truck, exploding spectacularly, making him gasp in shock. The one who caused the accident was none other than TRANNAC himself. He would help HALONAM do what he couldn't. During class, Teacher Vian awkwardly mentioned that they would soon buy a set of papers for 50 USD, but buying from here would only cost 40 NDT. Immediately, TRANNAC generously took out a large sum of money to pay for both KHAKKSA and HALONAM, making the teacher even more embarrassed. However, holding the money in his hands, Teacher Van did not feel happy at all and instead wore a very somber expression. This was the first time he had made money from his students, feeling incredibly guilty about it. It was all because the teacher's salary was insufficient, and he needed money to buy medicine for his wife. So he used this method with a heavy conscience. The other students were not unaware and continued gossiping, saying that he wasn't exemplary at all, earning money from them. Immediately, TRANNAC rebuked them, saying whether it was right or not, it was still cheaper, as the school was selling a set for 60, so they should stop complaining so much. After the day of being assigned to assassinate Dom Doem's mother, he immediately used the octopus web to find someone to protect her. Quickly, someone accepted the task and would arrive within 24 hours. So tonight, he had to stay alert and use his abilities to monitor the situation. However, all he could hear were the sounds of people going about their activities since, after all, he was in a hotel. Frustrated, he called the police, claiming that the hotel was involved in prostitution, out of jealousy and annoyance. The next morning, still affected by the noises from the previous night, he was immediately struck by the sight of the beautiful Dom. Thankfully, he managed to restrain the beast within himself, hurriedly grabbed some food, and returned to his room. Meanwhile, CHIMRUI had submitted a request to drop out of school because she had different plans for her future. She felt a sense of relief as she took off her uniform, which she had disliked for a long time. However, her illness had not improved and had worsened. She talked to herself in the mirror, imagining it was her sister, which was part of her reason for wanting to quit school, hoping to find her true passion in life. At this time, Dom and her mother went out, always followed by a man who kept an eye on them. He didn't forget to call home to remind his family to watch the pot on the stove and mockingly criticize the foreigner. He boasted that he could ride a bicycle faster. While Dom's mother was in a meeting, Dom happily updated TRANNAC about her situation. TRANNAC was monitoring everything from A to Z, always hiding in the shadows, observing everything. He sensed danger. The assailant was ready in the elevator, but as he was about to act, he was pulled back by the young man who had been following the mother and daughter all morning. This man, wearing a mask, had been showcasing his martial arts skills throughout the village. The two were enjoying their time together when the elevator suddenly opened, causing the assailant to run immediately. However, there was no escape. "I'm not letting you get away, kid," he said, ready to strike. He had concealed weapons on him and threw them, causing the masked man to dodge quickly, flipping backward. This allowed the attacker to escape, constantly lamenting how difficult it was to earn money while his back was in excruciating pain. Everything was witnessed by TRANNAC, but he didn't intervene to help others earn a living. At that moment, a masked man in the internet cave tried to contact TRANNAC, but his typing was extremely stiff, pecking at each letter like an old man blind to technology. He hurriedly lamented how the mission had affected his efforts to please his wife, but after being promised another 100,000, he immediately agreed with a nod. No one ever says no to money. Right away, he ordered Dom to take her mother to the barbecue place they had eaten at yesterday to create an opportunity for the assassin to appear. Even though she knew it was dangerous, she trusted that he would protect them from the shadows. As soon as she started worrying, her mother pushed Dom aside as a car sped toward them at a terrifying speed. Fortunately, the masked man, ever vigilant, appeared and used his power to stop the car. He didn't forget, though, that there was someone behind them attacking with a knife. He quickly used his lion's roar technique to stop the attacker, immediately rushing in to kick away the knife. After confirming they were unharmed, he left. The failed assassin quickly escaped onto a truck where his accomplices were waiting. They thought they were safe, not realizing he was secretly following behind. They all returned to their hideout, and the remaining one had just arrived. Seeing the attack earlier, everyone quickly got into their own cars and left, not giving him a chance to act. He went inside to check on his partner, but as soon as he touched him, the partner was continuously electrocuted. Under the blanket was none other than TRANNAC, holding an electric baton. The other two heard the commotion and came in, boldly declaring they wouldn't reveal who hired them. But TRANNAC didn't care about that. He just wanted to know how much money was left in their web account. Seeing this, the two quickly drew their weapons to attack, but whether it was ignorance or sheer stupidity, they made direct contact with the electric baton, causing them to twitch all over. Seeing his own weapon was metal as well, the other one quickly threw his sword away and charged in with bare hands, but forgot that he was also conducting electricity, sharing the same fate as his companions. Before dying, they wanted to reveal the truth in their hearts and asked him to deal with the contractor when he met him, to help them. The demon showed extreme anger because the contractor had assured them during the mission briefing that there would be no skilled person involved, and if there were, they would seek death themselves. But immediately he agreed to help them, using his supernatural abilities to make their departure easier. Back at the base, after removing his mask, he was covered in blood. It's true that making money isn't easy. He called his wife, who was very concerned about her health, and then removed his mask, revealing that the one who assigned the task was none other than Master Vian. He didn't expect the master to be involved in the underworld. That night, he received orders from him to go to the place where they fixed the gang's cars and dispose of the bodies. He hid in the trees to observe everything. When he discovered the wild bird threat, the masked compet, he was lucky to have concealed his true weapon, avoiding detection. After gathering them into one group, he added some powder to them, a trick of the ancient factions. Upon returning, the joy of how much his pay would be tingled in his mind. With this money, he could afford medication for his wife for a long time. But he had to doubt his vision when the system notification only showed $12. He kept typing with TRANNAC, thinking he had been deceived, but it turned out to be because he played a game. When the system notified him of his account balance being $500,000, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was truly a roller coaster of emotions. After returning the money he managed to seize from them, he silently celebrated in his heart for the big profit, which still left $88,000 surplus. Calculating that he would pay the mask $550,000 and still have a little left, he contacted the contractor. Now he could pull in a bit more money. Truly, this website was a money tree for someone. So, he hurried to the supervisor's house to enjoy the feast, as today was TTDOANGO. After getting drunk, the supervisor kept advising TRANNAC, hoping that in the future he would become successful, despite his wife's objections. After getting tipsy and doing who knows what else, he went home. After he collapsed, he went to Master Van's house to pay his respects, but only the master's wife was home, while he had to go buy medicine. As he glanced into the kitchen, he saw a gigantic pot boiling medicine, and they were chatting happily. Suddenly, she slammed the table and stood up, waving her arms and legs wildly, leaving him speechless. Wasn't he the one who got Master Van drunk? Why was his wife now having a fit? Then she sat back down and banged on the table, leaving both brothers astonished. Well, that's that, he thought. While they were bewildered, the melodious sound of a bird caught their attention. In the class of KEPDE, they recognized that bird as a familiar mask. Luckily, Master Van returned immediately, guiding her towards some medicine to inhale, as she had recently joined the theater and had contracted an illness, requiring home care. After TRANAC returned, whether she worried that her husband had embarrassed himself in front of the students or was concerned for his future, everyone liked TRANNAC. She quickly told her husband that if their child faced any issues in the future, he should lend a helping hand. Seeing her concern, he felt a pang of guilt. Even at their age, they didn't have any children. He blamed himself. If he hadn't been sick, they might have had smart children like those of Master Vian. But the master just laughed bitterly. Without children, there was no need to worry about them being taken away by someone else one day. He reminded himself of the payment he received for protecting Dom Delm's mother, which could cover medicine for his wife for 2 or 3 years. But he hesitated to engage in such dangerous activities again. He had seen one of his opponents being brutally killed, and it made him reconsider. Realizing that his master was actually the masked one, he quickly transferred the debt he owed to him, silently celebrating. Then, he peeked at his master practicing martial arts, but to his surprise, he appeared to be doing Tai Chi, mimicking the movements of an elephant, appearing weak despite his strength. This performance aimed to enhance his real strength, portraying himself as feeble with a frail body since childhood, to make his true power more convincing. To make it more convincing, he coughed up a bit of blood, making his master worry and wanting to teach him martial arts and internal energy cultivation. But his kindness was just another deception, as it was just tomato juice on his hand. As they say, once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. So he left, looking happy, though his supernatural abilities were still lacking. Learning one more skill would offset another. So one fox wasn't enough. he had to bring Haonan along. While everyone else was asleep at midnight, he woke the boy up to go to school with him. Despite his initial reluctance, the boy insisted on accompanying him. During the lesson, while Master Van was demonstrating his finesse, the teenager seemed extremely distracted, as if preparing to catch frogs. Then, as soon as the lesson ended, he hugged the ground as if it were his mother. Seeing this, his teacher grabbed his head to examine him. Though he seemed better than Haonan, his potential was still quite ordinary. Annoyed, he left them there, feeling contemptuous. While the boy trembled during the exams and then went home, he couldn't even be bothered to stand up. But he didn't allow the boy to stop training, using the excuse of wanting to look better himself. So that evening, he transferred some internal energy into Haonan, helping him improve. A few days later, with just a flick of his ear, he knocked over a cup on the table, splashing water everywhere. The teacher's tea and internal energy training was interesting but utterly useless. Even if he trained to the peak, he still couldn't break a cup within a 3-meter range. Then, in the middle of the night, he heard a knock on the door. Just as he wondered who could be so impolite, he was greeted by a surprising sight. Someone he had encountered before, none other than the despicable figure from that notorious family, Taeubip's biological father. He barged into the house and sat on the sofa, casually commenting on the good air conditioning. At that moment, Haoman's mother arrived to take his affection away, leaving TRANNAC feeling irritated. Immediately, he ordered his mother to come out for some fresh air, as he shamelessly wanted to see her, demanding Taeudip, after discarding the girl for his family. Without hesitation, he expressed his disdain for the man's antics, knowing all too well what he was up to. He didn't bother with pleasantries, just demanded how much money he wanted. Seeing the man making such a fuss over 3,000, he felt it was quite cheap. Feeling sorry for him, he added an extra 1,000 if he agreed to pick up Taeudip and have a meal with the girl. Upon seeing his father, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, Taeudip immediately burst into tears, embracing him tightly, crying uncontrollably. His mother quickly whispered about the hardships they endured at his uncle's house, where they were denied meals and even locked in the bathroom with cold water splashed on them, causing immense frustration. Now, all three went to have a meal together, with the boy constantly giving his share to his father and talking incessantly about his experiences. Seeing this, TRANNAC knew, no matter how good he was to the boy, he could never fill the void of parental affection in his heart. In Taeudip's memories, her father was portrayed as a very good man to his family, leading a happy and harmonious life until he got involved in gambling, leading to tragedy for the entire family. At the end of the day, Taeudip was handed back to TRANNAC without any remorse, as they just wanted to leave quickly. This astonished TRANNAC, realizing even with his own daughter, the man couldn't resist his nature. Quickly, he expressed his desire to leave, claiming he had to meet someone important and demanded money up front. TRANNAC's face darkened, realizing he had to let Taeudip go to give the man a chance to turn his life around. However, it seemed the man wanted to find a way to die, as he mentioned a crucial figure, a hitman with a reputation for being ruthless, who wanted to meet TRANNAC to request his services. Introduced by a fellow inmate, when he saw the man about to leave, he quickly offered to pay the rent here to gain his favor, arranging to meet at the office tomorrow to discuss business. Having spent all of the 1,000 received from TRANNAC and 200 for rent, he wanted to squeeze out more money from TRANNAC. Glancing at the blonde-haired girl beside him, he even suggested they go rent a room together, while he wanted to enjoy after so many days of fasting in the closet. Suddenly, cries echoed from outside. A friend burst in, swiftly closing the door behind them. "You dare lay a finger on my sister?" he thundered, his scanty hair enough for the other person to grip firmly. The blonde promptly denied, "I'm not your sister." But before she could finish, a slap landed on her face, prompting a hasty nod. Yes, I'm your brother," she conceded. "You want to play the role of our grandfather too? Fine by me." However, In his eyes, he was merely calculating the cost of the blonde's deceit, thus fabricating this charade to evade payment. With that, he exited the hospital, swaggering with powdered elegance, but his mind still clouded with confusion, unable to discern his own folly. It was TRANNAC who had erred. Upon receiving a damning call from his associates, he swiftly grasped the extent of his deception, resorting to feigned ignorance before eventually acknowledging his misstep. With TRANNAC now in possession of the money, the man with the gleaming scalp took interest. After Lai, the disabled man, relinquished control of the organization, financial matters became off-limits, rendering their protests futile. Their attempt to garner worldly wealth painted them as benevolent benefactors, offering aid with hidden agendas. Despite HAONAM's burgeoning intellect, he remained volatile, his countenance darkening at the mere mention of TRANNAC. Efforts to coerce him into imparting knowledge proved fruitless, as he wavered between attendance and absence. Just as he was about to impart a lesson, TIUDIEP materialized unexpectedly. "The little one's here to play today," he declared cheerfully, whisking her away for a sumptuous meal, leaving me behind, helpless to detain them. While HAONAM toiled diligently, sweating profusely, he mentioned that Master Van wanted to hold a formal ceremony to accept the two of them as his disciples. However, yesterday he had second thoughts, unsure whether it was a good idea. When the subject of the master was broached, HAONAM's eyes lit up, thinking he could become TRANNAC's senior brother. "But that's a long way off, Beatty," he quipped. Instead, he vied for the position of leader, leaving Master Van fuming behind them. TIUDIEP, witnessing the furious outburst, was taken aback, tears welling up at the sight of such ferocity. The master immediately softened his tone and advised him not to lose his composure after just 5 minutes of leaving. He then rebuked the group for their previous behavior, having once accepted a disciple who turned out to be a senior brother. Upon hearing this, TRANNAC relinquished the position of senior brother to HAONAM. Despite his desire to be older, the younger one remained oblivious to the arrangement. The two senior brothers, out of the 4 master students who went to seek the Dharma, represented 8 disciplines. It was a pity that HAONAM was too naive to comprehend. Meanwhile, a school assembly was hastily called, followed by a higher-ranking official's arrival to address the school's issues. However, after witnessing various incidents, they saw someone standing with a more prominent figure, CHIMRUOI. The school announced an afternoon gathering to participate in a conference. As a result, he requested permission to skip class, preventing CHIMRUOI from finding LATHANH, even though he had come to the school to search for him. LATHANH quickly noticed the expensive clothing of the leader, but remained focused on the students, suspecting they might be looking for TRANNAC. Although Han QOC, the noblewoman's daughter, had arrived, another person's presence wasn't unusual. Meanwhile, at home, he toyed with the assassin commission to kill Dong Dom's mother, receiving no response. Therefore, he used his first account, exploiting the vulnerable teenage girl's soul, waiting for the commissioning party to assign a new task, and promptly engaging in it, swiftly gaining notoriety. After the system notified him of his successful passage, knowing that this mission could lead to a promotion, the target for assassination remained Dong Dom's mother. However, this time, not only him but 5 others were involved as well, necessitating the establishment of an additional defense layer. He immediately contacted Master Van, as his previous account had been cut off by him. He could use another account for transactions, just as the name was mentioned, which previously had Master Van fuming. After receiving a $150,000 deposit as trust, he suddenly felt the opponent seemed somewhat endearing and accepted the task. Nonetheless, it was good for saving money for his wife's medical treatment. However, the one behind the assignment was none other than the Queen, who had received the task from another party. NGUDAU, the little one, was depleting their funds, having divulged her last birthday, when she recklessly spiked her drink with alcohol, injuring her and prompting her to seek revenge. It wasn't good for infants and young children, so her grandmother hastily hung up the phone. Meanwhile, Dom Diom received a message from TRANNAC, the that the assassins had begun to lure them outside to capture the entire group. He encountered the queen, who was also in the adjacent hotel lounge. They seemed extremely friendly and praised each other profusely, but when the newcomer left, she revealed a smile, unsuspecting that her assassination target was beside her. At this moment, TRANNAC Seed was on the lookout on the second floor, while Master Van's canary was below. It was 8 p.m., and he assumed the day had passed uneventfully, but he was startled when he saw Queen TRANNAC, who could clearly communicate with animals using Master Van's canary. She relied solely on the canary, making him realize she was too strong, causing him to sweat profusely like an animal. Meeting his archenemy, who originally took the task lightly, he now believed that she was the one who stole the soul of the ghostly maiden and attacked Master Van, making him no match and pushing him back. While he was peacefully above, he was startled when he saw Master Van being attacked by the insane woman. He re-examined the mission, realizing that the 5 names were combined into Queen TRANNAC's plan, using 5 accounts. At this moment, Master Van had been beaten to the point of coughing up blood, still trying to explain the misunderstanding. But the woman, with a single leg, shattered the ground beneath her, swiftly grasping his shoulder before deftly shifting behind him, delivering a painful blow. Master Van attempted to retaliate, but ultimately proved no match for her, ending up sprawled in the dust. He continued to explain that in this life, he only repaid himself, wondering who would have the time to destroy the soul of a maiden and harm a woman. As soon as Queen TRANNAC realized her mistake, a bottle of Lao beer came flying at lightning speed, but it was just a feint, easily captured by the adept. However, it unexpectedly exploded again, catching her off guard, and the shards immediately scattered, forcing her to create a shield to protect herself. But before she could do much, another rapid attack from me could have selected the East Strike technique. But when I looked around, Master Van was nowhere to be found. Even the mother and son, Dom, had disappeared, leaving me immediately infuriated, unleashing my inner rage, feeling instantly suppressed when I received a call from NGUDAU. The little girl immediately jumped on the phone, not worrying about her main task, but using the secondary account to seek out petty tasks for some odd reason. The old woman, Queen TRANNAC, had struggled a lot to elevate her name to a new height, with a staggering price tag on the market. Seeing this, now it was being lowered, and her mission was cancelled, leaving her only to seek revenge later on against the thief who stole the young maiden's heart. After returning Master Van, the young man called Dom, reminding his mother to change hotels because this time, the assassin was a ruthless one, using her powers to manipulate and gather internal energy to awaken Master Van from within himself and heal his internal injuries. He could only pray to the heavens and the Buddha for this. The goddess TINHKHONG's mission this time had nothing to do with Dom's people. With his current strength, it wasn't certain he could retaliate. She was preparing to fill her own stomach. It seemed like heaven was teasing. People hated what they got. The more commodities there were, the more Queen TNHKHON sought out his location to feast, but he immediately composed himself, pretending to be a fool. The first time seeing a beautiful girl was considered a viewing, causing her not to notice him, viewing him as a kid, urging him to eat quickly so he could go home. At this point, the boss quickly raised his eyebrows, but I sat there, still not finished with my bowl of noodles. With just a sigh from Queen TINHKHONG, it made him alert. As soon as she opened her mouth, "Don't you want to know what I ordered?" It was as if he didn't belong to the type that would be stuck in her gut if he didn't eat. So Queen TINHKHONG couldn't wait any longer and urged, "Hurry up, or you'll miss your flight." Seeing this, the boss immediately used his powers on TRANNAC to knock him out. Seeing that, I could only pretend to be unconscious. It was said that TONGUYETVUC had appeared, an extremely talented person, causing Master TONGHU to entrust his daughter and martial arts to that person. Without further ado, the boss admitted that he was that person. Wherever TRANNAC was, there was a hidden master. So Queen TNHKHON came here to find him, because the restaurant owner had fled after slaughtering countless disciples because he had his own misery. He was forced into marriage, although the person the restaurant owner secretly loved was Mr. 2, but he was forced to marry someone 5 times heavier than him, who cried and complained because she was more talented than him, but was forced to marry a girl with arms 10 times bigger than him, who ate more than the army, making TRANNAC unable to laugh. But since he had received the mission from Queen TRANNAC, there was no other way but to rush in and attack. Seeing it couldn't be done there, he wanted to switch to another place to fight to avoid damaging the items in the shop. So both of them went up the mountain, and in a blink of an eye, the boss was immediately stuck on the rock wall, extremely painful. But even if he died, he wouldn't return to TUYETVC again. Unexpectedly, that person played so skillfully that he returned a mineral vein without surrendering. So he rushed in to attack, but his consecutive punches were nothing compared to the extremely tough white membrane of Queen TRANNAC, who immediately didn't give up and continuously attacked, forcing him against the wall. But it was all just yielding to the boss, as Queen TRANNAC remained extremely alert, easily dodging blows and retaliating with a punch that sent him flying backward. Initially, it was clear that the woman in front was no match for the restaurant owner. She immediately used a rope as a cloud whip and struck him directly. Although she could be captured, it coiled into his body. Even though the restaurant owner used the secret of TUYETIA, he couldn't resist the purple flames. Direct confrontation wasn't the way, so he quickly dove into the water. Seeing the hesitation of Queen TRANNAC, who didn't dare to step into the water, the restaurant owner immediately realized that this woman couldn't swim and laughed. "It will be a long time before we catch him." But as he swam further away, the battle grew more intense. I, furious at the beauty's arrogance, immediately launched an attack by rooting a tree to attack. But in an instant, it turned out the tree TRANNAC was hiding behind. So he hurriedly swam away. When the tree was pushed straight down into the water, Queen TRANNAC used it as a bridge for herself while controlling the branches. Both continuously fought each other, creating a tremor, making the tree temporarily unstable. Suddenly, a gigantic figure glided past Queen TRANNAC's life on the river, causing her to immediately fall into the water. After nearly drowning, before she could raise her head, she was hit by a woman who wanted to send her off from the world. It turned out to be the wife of the restaurant owner, also the 4th young lady of TUYETIA, who, while he was being taken back to marry her sister, saw someone trying to take her husband away and immediately chased after Queen TRANNAC, aiming to kill her. Various demons and supernatural beings have unique martial arts techniques, and she wanted to use them on Queen TRANNAC. Fortunately, she managed to fend them off, but they ended up misdirected and struck her head, causing Queen TRANNAC to immediately lose consciousness. After they could both be safe and sound, they wanted to deal with her to prevent future repercussions. But suddenly, a voice from all directions echoed, stopping them. She began to attack from above, making them more vigilant, as they believed she was a disciple of the Buddhist sect. Hearing this, TRANNAC, who was inside, pretending to be a deity, immediately took action, feeling sorry for the loss of life in the world, becoming murderous. Hearing this, the couple believed that she was a high monk and left. Of course, he couldn't let such a beautiful young girl die unjustly here, and immediately took her for treatment. So after unintentionally bringing the individual back home, noticing their mud-covered and damp body, TRANNAC helped Queen TRANNAC out of her wet clothes without any ulterior motive. He didn't pry intentionally, but simply guided them to the bath for a thorough cleanup. Once refreshed, they were taken to TUDIEP's room to assess Queen TRANNAC's health, considering her aquaphobia, a trait TRANNAC remembered from their past life. They had both been on a mission together in the South Pole, where an ice mishap led to Queen TRANNAC falling into the water. Paralyzed by fear and unable to struggle, she could only be grateful to TRANNAC for his help. However, upon waking up, she immediately struck out, instinctively defending herself against any perceived threat. Moments later, she experienced a sudden headache amidst persistent voices and instinctively reached out to TRANNAC, not recalling her own identity. Then suddenly, she attacked him, questioning her surroundings and her own identity. TRANNAC, understanding her confusion, was startled when she mistook him for her husband, causing him to step back in surprise. Despite her confusion, her urgent pleas demonstrated both vulnerability and strength. TRANNAC tried to comfort her, only to face further aggression. He realized her desperation stemmed from memory loss, compounded by her current condition. As the scene unfolded, TRANNAC couldn't help but notice her complexity and resilience. Later, as the commotion settled, TRANNAC found himself reflecting on their past and the challenges ahead. Despite the chaos, he felt a profound responsibility for her well-being, acknowledging the intricacies of their relationship. Now, the movie was over because the protagonist was at the altar, and immediately a fantastical story was concocted. According to it, the two were married for a year, but Queen TINHAONG would always go mad and destroy the house, wanting to kill TRANNAC time and time again to establish dominance. TRANNAC managed to get a sparkling tear out of her and mentioned the household items, claiming that she would always go mad and destroy things. He took her inside to check on the condition of Master Vian, but made up a story that it was actually an old man suffering from a stroke. Although he didn't remember anything, she still seemed intelligent, mentioning the marriage certificate proving they were husband and wife, though TRANNAC couldn't possibly make things difficult. TRANNAC claimed that everything had been burnt by her during her mad fits, and when she mentioned a mole on his body during her outburst, he took the chance to glance at it secretly, and just as expected, he managed to deceive her, making Queen TINHAONG feel remorseful and burst into tears, worried about the poor state of the house and her own tendencies to destroy things during her fits of madness. So only after she sank into sleep could he breathe a sigh of relief. But to be absolutely sure, he used his powers to deepen her slumber, fearing to bring harm upon her. Hastily, after a quick glance, he didn't want to take responsibility, so he took the innkeeper's daughter to the riverbank and left her there, turning away with an ideal of living a peaceful life, like a proper father. Luckily, he still had a conscience, envisioning horrifying scenes. Perhaps leaving her there wouldn't be humane, so he returned to where he had been before. In her past life, she had always been erratic, relying solely on NGUDAU. Now, her madness had returned in full force. Surely, she couldn't fend for herself. But when he returned, it was too late, as there was no sign of her anywhere to be seen, causing him to worry and dive into the lake to check. Even if he ran 7,000 laps around the mountain, he couldn't find a trace of her. Who knew where Queen TINHAONG was now? Well, the person at the airport could call NGUDAU to pick her up, and that would be the end of it. Turning back, he saw her right in front of his house, hastily shifting all responsibility and blame onto her. "Where are you going, dear? It's midnight, and I've been worried sick looking for you everywhere." Seeing that, she even believed she had gone mad herself, so she went to the lakeside. After not seeing TRANNAC, she relied on his breath to find her way home. Now she's done for, he thought. She had remembered his breath, relying on it in the future. Even if she ran to the end of the earth, she couldn't escape. Returning to Queen TNHKK's head, he jumped to the conclusion that neither of them were normal. Could any ordinary couple fight like that? Furthermore, upon waking up, she immediately sensed TRANNAC's mood, making him feel uncomfortable. His mind had to come up with a story, and a hallucinatory one at that. At that moment, TRANNAC was just a 10-year-old child, still nursing from a fake breast and needing her, while she was a beekeeper living in the mountains, lending a helping hand to him. Since then, they had lived together, a man without a wife and a woman without a husband, yet love blossomed between them. However, that story made Queen TINHKHONG feel familiar. Outwardly, he attributed it to his own experiences, which made him feel that way. But in reality, he knew very well that this was just a hallucination from his previous life, a wuxia story. So he clung to it to deceive her. The next day, while she was still cheerful, she suddenly heard a woman's voice. At that moment, he was sneakily making a phone call to DOM to cook porridge. But as soon as he turned around, he saw Queen TRANNAC right behind him, which startled him. Quickly, he questioned himself, having just heard his daughter's voice. Luckily, he managed to say that he was on the phone with the neighborhood leader. Immediately, he grabbed the basin of water, wanting to quickly take Master Vian to the hospital before he admired the naked chickens. He instructed Queen TINHKHONG to peel potatoes at home while he silently carried Master Vian away. Meanwhile, Master Van's wife was holding a canary in her hand. Normally, if he went out on a mission, he would take it with him. But this time he left it at home and ignored calls. She followed the bird's trail to TRANNAC's house. At this moment, Queen TINHKHONG was diligently working. As soon as she heard a noise, she happily ran outside, thinking it was her husband calling her. This led Master Van's wife to mistakenly believe her husband was having an affair with Queen TINHKHONG and went inside to confront her. After searching every nook and cranny and finding no one, she finally suspected she had entered the wrong house. However, when the clock struck, the birdcage was immediately thrown to the ground, as it preparing for a great battle. Unexpectedly, it was because she too was having an episode, starting to perform a theatrical dance. Seeing her, it was clear she also had a brain issue similar to his own, making him unable to ignore her. He kindly wanted to bring her back home safely, but she refused to leave and instead went to TUDIEP's house to pick up her daughter. At the same time, the gang of the shiny-headed guy had forced TUDIEP's father to reveal her school location, planning to kidnap her and demand ransom. But they were relaxed because TIEVIEP's father was present and not afraid of the police. When the guy obediently took his daughter outside, Master Van's wife spotted them. They showed mutual affection as they had previously accepted TIEVIEP as their foster child. Immediately, Master Van's wife asked TIEVIEP's father who the sudden visitor was and if he intended to kidnap his daughter. After that, both gradually calmed down, each wanting to take the girl home. Seeing this, the shiny ones intentionally pushed Master Van's wife aside, but to no avail. She remained strong and sturdy. With many people around, they didn't want to escalate the situation. Seeing this, they decided to put her on the car. Standing outside, Queen TNHKHONG also wanted to go along, causing him to widen his eyes. Suddenly, the beautiful woman fell into his arms. Why would he refuse? But as soon as he returned, he couldn't find her anywhere, quickly searching every corner. Suddenly, the phone rang, and on the other end was TIEVIEP's father, as predictable as ever, claiming he had taken the girl out for a meal. Without needing to say, he understood. He was asked to prepare 50,000 dong, which made TRANNAC unable to be charitable. He had always respected TIEVIEP, giving him a way to live, but now seeing no kindness. After taking the three of them to their cunning hideout, he wanted to impress the beauty. So he brought them to the dining room, reminding his brother not to go upstairs if he heard any noise. Then, foolishly, he asked them what they wanted to eat. Master Van's wife took a deep breath and immediately ordered steamed lamb, bear paw, deer tail, roasted duck, roasted goose, salted duck, smoked meat, and so on. Seeing her annoyance, he ordered TIEVIEP's father to quickly call for money and take the girl with her to another room. As for Queen TINHKHONG, she remained firmly loyal to her alcohol, even refusing offered juice. This delighted him as it made her easier to intoxicate and manipulate. Just as he answered TIEVIEP's father's call, he thought he wanted to raise the price, but to his surprise, he heard Queen TINHKHONG's deep call, shocking him so much that he almost dropped the phone. Immediately, he badmouthed the group, saying they didn't look honest and respectable. He even suggested they could gossip somewhere else. The most shocked person at that moment was none other than TRANNAC. TIEVIEP's father had just spent his money, but it was as if he was saying Queen TNHKHON was with them. While talking, as soon as she saw the alcohol, her eyes lit up like headlights and she immediately wanted to drink. This made TRANNAC so scared he wanted to run away with his pants down. He thought of the scenario where the bug would grind them alive, so he quickly begged for restraint. They quickly restrained the alcohol bug, but it had already turned off its desire to avoid causing a catastrophe. He wanted to intoxicate Queen TINHKHONG, but didn't know her capabilities, so he decided to play the drinking game with a large glass that had to be finished, or else they would all die. But they all thought it was just a joke, so they laughed it off. However, 20 minutes later, they all vomited everywhere, leaving only her standing strong. But she kept laughing. Seeing this, he quickly lost patience and wanted to take the beauty inside to rest, but she immediately struck his face like a thunderbolt, ordering them to stop. When his underlings saw his boss being hit on the head, he immediately rushed in, but she grabbed his leg and dragged him toward the window, then threw him out without hesitation. She then fixed her hair and ears, not knowing if that guy could survive. Falling from the 3rd floor, he might be light but would probably have a cracked skull. He immediately realized this woman was not normal and got angry, grabbing a bottle of alcohol to smash it on her head, passing it to TEVIEP's father to hold as a shield. Without saying much, she directly stopped the shield and a few bottles of alcohol, making the guy stare in shock. Seeing the two men whispering about escaping, Queen TINHKHONG became extremely angry and crushed the bottle. TIUDIEP's father wanted to run, but she grabbed his leg, thinking he didn't want to drink with her, scaring him into quickly grabbing a glass and finishing it off to avoid her wrath, even though leaving a bit at the bottom made her unhappy, so she slapped him right away. After torturing TIUDIEP's father, he turned his satisfaction to the shiny-headed figure, causing him to tremble in fear and tears. The mother's voice hurriedly called out to him, but the guards outside the door had been instructed that nothing was to come in. So he turned away and pretended not to notice, only to receive a slap from the queen that left a hole in the table, forcing him to hold a cup of sorrowful wine. "Cheers to you," he said with reverence, while TIUDIEP's father ascended to heaven. Meanwhile, they Van finally regained consciousness after fainting, quickly looking at the clock and remembering his wife and children, fearing that she had fallen ill and wandered the streets. TIUDIEP swiftly asked, "Mother, are you answering the phone?" boasting that she was with her foster mother, which shocked him. With so many places not being where they should, he questioned why she went to the underworld for what reason. Just then, TRANNAC arrived on his motorcycle, making the two newcomers hesitant to speak loudly. Fortunately, there was an old acquaintance inside who recognized him as the boss's former bodyguard, so they quickly silenced and made way. At that moment, he was drinking with the queen, wanting to expand his belly, but suddenly heard the door open. He eagerly ran towards the sunlight but immediately closed it when he recognized the person who had troubled his boss, and collapsed even more when he realized she was his wife. After realizing that TIUDIEP was in the next room and seeing her father unconscious, he diverted the attention of Queen TINHKHONG, throwing him down without mercy, as life and death followed the human destiny. As soon as he turned around, he saw the shiny-headed figure hitting his head. Feeling sorry for herself, knowing what she had done to him, she didn't dare to ask for forgiveness even if he gave her the best food. TRANNAC generously let him choose and jump on his own, or he would lend a hand to help. Thus, both husband and wife cheered and laughed together, not understanding why someone would choose to jump from a building. After realizing that Queen TINHKHONG was starting to remember her true identity, he retreated about 80 meters in fear, hesitating for about 15 seconds before asking again about his name and identity. Once he determined the name LOGCHAI that he had fabricated, he finally felt at ease to lead the person away. Luckily, in her drunken state, she only temporarily remembered. He quickly went through the adjacent room to pick up TIUDIEP. However, upon hearing that there was also a foster mother of the girl inside, he promptly closed the door again. The foster mother was Thay Van's wife. If he went in now, it would expose his identity. While unsure of what to do, he suddenly heard the familiar voice of Thay Van searching for his wife. He immediately dodged aside because he couldn't lie to the queen. Meanwhile, the man who was supposed to play the role of his biological father was wandering outside, about to fall into a hole while being intoxicated. He entered the room where he saw Queen TRANNAC continuing to drink, so he switched the juice for her to sober her up, and answered Thay Van's call. He asked about the girl's situation involving her biological father, not knowing why Queen TRANNAC suddenly became agitated and clung to him when he turned off the video call. He immediately smelled something suspicious, not expecting the juice to be drugged as well. Seeing the tempting piece in front of him, he dared not touch it because he was afraid. After she regained her memory, his head was hard to keep, so he immediately lifted Queen TRANNAC onto his shoulders from the upstairs, planning to jump off the power line to return home faster. He quickly searched the phone on the shiny-headed figure, while Lao Lalai was relaxing in a hot bath. Suddenly, he heard his disciple's phone ringing, but before he could answer it, he heard the call of death, making him immediately tremble. When asked if his disciple had caused any trouble with him, TRANNAC immediately denied it, making him breathe a sigh of relief, but then quickly criticized the parent-teacher relationship. "It was just my wife being drugged and intoxicated," he said, leaving Lao Lalai seemingly speechless, dropping the phone into the bathtub. His subordinates quickly came to report the situation, saying that the shiny-headed figure was under attack and was now in the hospital, which angered him. Why wasn't he dead yet? If not, bury him alive to finish him off. He immediately ordered his subordinates to investigate thoroughly. He dared to touch TRANNAC's woman within half an hour. At this moment, he inadvertently tied Queen TRANNAC up, but when he handed her a large bottle of water, he heard a phone call from Lao Lalai. He asked about her health condition, wondering why he wasn't the one calling first. Lao Lalai sent the call to seek permission to investigate all kinds of matters, and then provide explanations as well as appropriate punishments for them. Just as he finished his tasks and turned to Queen TRANNAC, intending to use her powers to break the ropes, she dragged TRANNAC into her mountain of guilt, making him feel helpless. Using the excuse of not being able to resist, he enjoyed the sudden intoxication, but she suddenly felt upset and rushed into the bathroom. Then she asked TRANNAC to get clothes. There were no women's clothes left in the house, so he had to go outside to buy them. But in the end, it didn't happen as planned. The dress was too tight for her, and ultimately, nothing happened. TRANNAC seemed to be lucky or unlucky, as he could only look but not touch. After investigating everyone involved, it was discovered that the shiny-headed figure, driven by extreme greed, foolishly touched SATTIA's wife, who turned out to be no ordinary person, but a fierce spiritual snake. They seemed to be a perfect match, but there was something fishy about it, and he felt uneasy, because he thought his informant was HAONAM. So why was his wife with TAUDIEP's foster mother when TIEUDIEP's father wanted to kidnap their child for ransom, along with his other son and another woman? He quickly investigated and then hurried back to announce that the older brother was TRANNAC, a schoolmate of HAONAM. So why was the foster mother of TIEUDIEP's sister a close friend of HAONAM's wife? Their relationship seemed to deepen further, so he immediately arrested TIEUDIEP's father to show his loyalty because he needed to do well. He pretended to be ill to ask TRANNAC to treat his legs. When TRANNAC retrieved his clothes for Queen TINHKA to wear, instead of buying them, he got them from the neighboring house of TIUHONG, but of course, he couldn't bury someone else's belongings like that, so he called the bald head to buy some clothes, specifically old ones, and with a series of requests to fit Queen TINHKHONG, who was over 7 meters tall, making his disciple baffled. Clearly, he was short and chubby. So where did he get the supermodel's long legs from? At this moment, Queen TINHKHONG recounted the events of yesterday when she encountered a woman who mistakenly entered the wrong house, causing a mental breakdown. Feeling sorry for her, she followed her, but was then captured by the bad guys. She wondered why he came to rescue her yesterday, but then fled upon hearing the arrival of the woman's husband. Immediately, TRANNAC prepared to leave when he heard the husband looking for her. The couple were underworld figures who wanted to keep a low profile to avoid being discovered by the bad guys. Otherwise, their identities would be exposed. Despite finding the situation very intriguing, she noted a flaw in the story. After being berated by Queen TRANNAC all day, he needed some time to pick up TRANNAC. He quickly escorted the girl inside the cosmetic surgery clinic without any consultation, as long as no injections or surgeries were involved, providing a full package of services, which made the staff eager for him to pay for a VIP card worth tens of thousands, without knowing the exact amount, as long as it prolonged the process for a day. He sternly instructed Queen TRANNAC to stay obediently to undergo beauty treatments, then went to Faye Van's house to pick up TAEVIEP. However, he was pulled inside by him to explain the situation, while Faye's wife took TIEUDIEP to school. Since the child hadn't seen her brother for a long time, she didn't understand what had happened the previous day when her mother fell ill, causing her memory loss. TIEUDIEP was too young to understand, so it was impossible to know what had happened. After learning that TIEUDIEP's father was not a good person, her aunt took her to her home and promised to be her guardian from now on, ensuring her safety. This deeply moved him as he held Faye's hand with sparkling eyes. After resolving the situation, he quickly left, but before he could catch his breath, he received another call from the school authorities. It turned out they wanted to introduce him to foreign investors. Teacher Luu sternly advised him to make a good impression to secure potential investments. However, TRANNAC quickly used his charming eyes to help the teacher realize that forgetting oneself was a common human flaw, causing him to tremble and quickly plunge into the water to seek redemption in a savior manner. However, in the world, nothing comes without a cost, and even if he skipped classes, it was considered absence, leading to criticism or even disciplinary action. It turned out the teacher wanted to find an assistant, and TRANNAC, with the most accurate English pronunciation in the school, was asked to help. But upon entering, he encountered an elderly woman who had the audacity to claim they were the same age. Was her eyesight failing? In fact, she was the caretaker of the rich father who sent him to another place. As soon as the door opened, he was greeted by the gaze of 500 comrades, with the woman practicing yoga, causing TRANNAC to sweat profusely. How did CHINRUI find him? It turned out he relied on the hotel where he had stayed before, tracing him within 48 hours. Suddenly, CHINRUI moved again towards TRANNAC, provocatively holding up a rope and putting it around his neck, making him feel overwhelmed. Meanwhile, TRANNAC enjoyed life, while his other wives began to worry as he hadn't contacted DOM in 2 days. Just pretending that TRANNAC was behind her was enough to make DOM eagerly hopeful, but it turned out to be a deception. Seeing her daughter's longing, her mother encouraged her to actively seek TRANNAC, as what man wouldn't be moved by a beautiful, faithful woman? Hearing that, DOM immediately wanted to go to PHAPHAI's house to find someone. At this moment, overwhelmed by everything, he understood how PHAPHAI felt when she was wrapped in chains. But with so many things to attend to at home, there was no time to enjoy life. He grabbed CHINRUI's hand tightly and exclaimed, "Hey, are you even a man? You have what you need, but don't know how to use it. You're giving me a headache." In the end, what did they all want to do? But the ultimate answer was just a piece of TRANNAC. He was supposed to become her man, making him feel dizzy and nauseous. Everyone was like this, going from one person to another. He wasn't a piece of DUNGTNG meat to be handed around. He immediately sought every reason in the world to refuse, but they held on tightly. He could pretend not to notice and declare, "Has your father been causing trouble? Are you lying under coconut trees?" This made her immediately cling to him because he was the one who had taken her out of death's grasp. But now, on this earth, CHINRUI didn't know his purpose anymore, nor did he have anyone by his side. Tears were indeed a man's weakness, instantly allowing her to stay with him, on the condition that she wouldn't disclose TRANNAC's identity and warning her not to let what happened earlier repeat. Unexpectedly, these women were all crazy for their own love. Chim Ruoi then invested a huge amount of money in this cheap education system, which he couldn't understand. Since he couldn't contact the queen, Ngudau carried his luggage and went to China to search. Suddenly, he encountered Dulao, who was also hunting like a pack of wild dogs. He came here to rest and take care of small tasks, but never forgot to recruit talent, always hoping to fulfill his desire to return as his disciple. One of the small tasks mentioned was to receive orders from the captain of ABES to hunt down TRANNAC. After arranging everything, he called HAONAM to work, wanting to introduce the kid to the world. He immediately took him to a very luxurious tea house and got straight to the point. HAONAM, do you remember everything? This made the kid turn pale. Are you going to kill someone and destroy evidence, big brother? But what was Love doing now? His senior brother wanted HAONAM to meet someone. At this moment, Old Man Uli had just arrived. As the guy named Tae-Sai hastily pushed the door open, he was reminded to knock first before entering. While HAONAM was still trying to follow TRANNAC's instructions, just hearing the introduction that he was its disciple made the old man turn pale. Not only was he a classmate, but also a senior brother. However, seeing TRANNAC's intimidating and uncomfortable appearance, he thought he was someone easy to deal with, as everything was evident on his face. He immediately yielded to show that he had punished his subordinates straightforwardly for their offenses, even though his wife was fine. Hearing this, TRANNAC exploded in anger, shouting loudly, "Fine? How is it fine?" Secretly delighting in the fact that he was easy to anger, unlike HAONAM, who was inscrutable. He quickly proposed his solution. Apart from dealing with the shiny soldiers, the core of the matter was TAEDIEP's father. Both of them were currently hospitalized due to severe injuries. Once they recovered, they would be sent to prison. Of course, the old man wasn't just old, but also very cunning. After plotting the whole scene to make them commit crimes and end up in jail, he glanced at HAONAM for his opinion, but he remained silent. TRANNAC pretended to speak on behalf of himself, but actually expressed his ideas. Feeling that this solution was quite satisfactory, Old Man Uli knew what to do and handed him a wad of money, wanting it to help his wife buy something. Then he excused himself, still feeling a bit uneasy in his eyes. Seeing this, HAONAM reached out his hand, making the old man almost cry with joy as he respectfully held both of HAONAM's hands, then joined hands with TRANNAC. Taking advantage of their touch, he infused a bit of his strange ability into the old man's body. On the way back, the old man didn't have the chance to ask for help with his injured leg. Seeing this, the soldier eagerly wanted to investigate the sect the two had joined, cursing but unable to touch them. Being able to train such sharp disciples proved they weren't ordinary. Suddenly, the car braked abruptly, wanting to move forward. But there was a guy crossing the red light. Fortunately, the old man felt his legs returning to normal. After the person left, HAONAM quickly exhaled, finally able to breathe. While just moments ago he was extremely tense, now he was wide-eyed, looking at the money in the wallet, unbelievably plentiful. He couldn't help but count it hastily, ultimately totaling over 80,000. It wasn't much considering the reputation of the senior, who only paid this much. This could be considered a meager sum. Of course, the senior wanted to clear the way for himself, hence the compensation fee. If he used a large sum now, he might need more later, and he couldn't just sell his land and house to cover it all. Leaving the money for HAONAM to spend made the poor guy feel apprehensive. "Do you have a wife already? I just made the request." Yet, he had already brought back 2 giant suitcases, filled to the brim, and even a bit scratched from being handled roughly by others, now conveniently emptied and refilled with cosmetics and skincare products. Seeing his disciple had been disadvantaged, TRANNAC quickly headed to the old man Li's location. HAONAM explained he was there to collect money for compensation before heading back to pick up the Queen TINHKHONG. She immediately grabbed his hand and ran off. having been approached by a high-end product salesperson and fearing she'd been duped, hence the discomfort. When they returned home, Queen TRANNAC inspected her clothes and possessions, finding nothing to her taste. Luckily, HAONAM was prepared, so she could freely select from the bag. Now, it was his turn to do household chores, reminiscing about the glorious days of his past life, when he could dine extravagantly on European and French cuisine. After half a day of applying makeup, Queen TINHKHONG found the salty taste unbearable and questioned her own existence. Clearly, this wasn't her taste. Therefore, whenever she went out, she could only wear her old clothes to avoid ridicule from the public. At the same time, the other two wives immediately wanted to storm his house to search, but as soon as they stepped out of the door, Dom spotted a girl crying uncontrollably. It was none other than Ngudau pretending to be lost. Seeing this, she kindly approached and inquired. The girl fabricated a story about coming here to play with her sister, but falling asleep on the bus and waking up alone, unable to remember the way back to the hotel. This immediately aroused her sympathy, prompting her to offer to help the girl return using the hotel keycard. Both set off immediately. After escorting Ngudau back to the hotel, they found no one inside. Seeing this, Dom instructed the girl to stay inside for safety. However, Ngudau immediately acted clingy, wanting her to accompany her inside because she was afraid to be alone. Inside, it was pitch dark, and before they could turn on the lights, she immediately revealed her true face and attacked Dom with her abilities, rendering the poor girl unconscious. Elder sister, nobody taught you not to follow strangers.